Chapter 1. Today Shi Shujing felt that she was out of luck. Because of work, she had an appointment with a client to discuss the matter of cooperation, but was continuously forced to drink by that man. She did not see him talk about work, but instead, he endlessly pestered her. Shi Shujing could not resist, and with great difficulty she found an excuse to leave first, but because she had drunk too much, her head was very dizzy, and she could not see clearly what was in front of her. Holding onto the wall, she stumbled as she walked. Just as she turned a corner, she suddenly bumped into a man's embrace. She subconsciously raised her head to look, because her vision was already blurry, so she could not see the man's face clearly. The only thing that left a deep impression on her was that pair of cold and sharp eyes. Looking at him, his character should not be too bad. Shi Shujing subconsciously grabbed onto the suit in front of his chest, instinctively asking for help. "Do me a favor." She originally wanted to say something, but sometimes, the human body was not 100% controlled by the brain. Shi Shujing only felt her vision go black, and she could not even see that pair of sharp eyes clearly, and she fainted. The moment before she fainted, she was actually a little afraid that something would happen to her. If the other party took advantage of her unconscious to do something to her, she had no ability to resist at all. But she did not have much time to think because she had already fainted. She only hoped that those things that she did not want to encounter personally would not happen. Next. In a daze, there seemed to be a man's body pressing on her, kissing her. Shi Shujing was afraid and instinctively reached out to push him away. Her mouth still seemed to be calling out in a low voice. "Don't." But the man grabbed her hand and pushed it away. Seeing that she reached out to resist, he grabbed her hand and directly pressed it to the side of her head. Shi Shujing felt that she was being violated, and when she could not resist, she cried out in pain. Beside her ear, the man's heavy breathing was rising and falling, as if because of her crying, it was even more wanton, and the starry kisses fell on her neck. He kissed her, but she felt that her neck was being tightly grabbed, and she was suffocated to the point that she could not breathe. "Don't." In the end, Shi Shujing seemed to cry out in a dream, and then she woke up in an instant. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the ceiling in front of her, and that heart was still in a state of shock. He was dreaming again. That was her first reaction. He didn't know if others had this kind of experience. They would have the same dream over and over again, but when they woke up, they couldn't remember what they had done in the dream no matter how hard they tried. They could only remember some scattered fragments. When Shi Shujing came back to her senses, she subconsciously looked around. He saw that this was a rather high-class suite. Looking around, the furniture was really spotless. He could even see the glass reflecting the white light. The decorations were quite tasteful. She couldn't remember what happened in the dream, but she clearly remembered what happened last night. There was a sudden boom in her head, and Shi Shujing's heart skipped a beat out of fear. Did something happen? She quickly sat up and lifted the blanket to look at her body. Fortunately, her clothes had not been changed, and her thighs did not feel sore after sex, which proved that she had not been taken advantage of last night. Shi Shujing secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at his suit, he gave off a more tasteful aura. He should not be the kind of inferior man who would get excited at the sight of a woman. She took the opportunity to get off the bed. Because she was not familiar with the environment, she did not have time to wear shoes, and just stepped on the floor with her bare feet. The floor was ice cold, and she stepped on it from the bottom of her feet to the top of her heart. After opening the bedroom door, she was not sure if there was anyone in this suite, so when she saw someone sitting on the sofa in the living room, she was still shocked and had a guilty conscience. Because of the alcohol last night, she couldn't see his face clearly, but now her mind was clear. How should she describe him? Chapter 2. Because the curtains were not drawn, the golden rays of the sun shone through the glass and landed on him from the corner of the large floor-to-ceiling window. Si Wenchen was wearing a white shirt with his sleeves rolled up. He held a cigarette in one hand and placed his other hand outside the armrest of the sofa to prevent the falling ash from burning the sofa. A large tablet was placed on his thigh, and his other hand was pulling down the screen. He seemed to be looking at something. The man retracted his hand that was clamping the cigarette butt and subconsciously took another puff. Perhaps it was because Shi Shujing was barefooted, so she didn't make a sound when she walked. Si Wenchen seemed to realize that there was someone standing not far away, and he instinctively turned his head to look. He raised his eyebrows, but he didn't pretend to be surprised like others and ask, "You're awake?" Si Wenchen looked at her indifferently and didn't seem to have any intention of taking the initiative to speak. Shi Shujing felt a trace of coldness under his indifferent eyes. Perhaps he was deliberately restraining his aura and pretending to be indifferent, but he still couldn't suppress the coldness that emanated from his bones. Shi Shujing shuddered uncontrollably. She was frightened by him. Then she felt very embarrassed and embarrassed. She scolded herself in her heart. Wasn't he just a rich man? Wasn't he just a little more money than her? As for being frightened by someone else's aura to the point of losing her backbone? She tried hard to calm herself down and stood there hesitating for a few seconds before she mustered up the courage to walk over to see Wenxin. "Hello, were you the one who helped me last night?" Although she tried very hard, Shi Shujing felt that her legs were still trembling. She didn't know why she was trembling. It wasn't like she hadn't seen strong winds and waves before. Logically speaking, in her current situation, she should be able to handle things calmly. There seemed to be a strange light flowing in Si Wenshin's eyes. He looked at her without saying a word. He was silent for a few seconds as though he was thinking about something. Then he raised his eyebrows and asked, "You don't know who I am?" Hearing this, Shi Shujing was stunned for a few seconds. Could it be that every millionaire with a little bit of money liked to use such a pretentious tone? It was as if it was normal for the entire world to know who he was. Shi Shujing despised him in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. She looked at him carefully and after confirming that he wasn't a famous celebrity, she shook her head, pretending not to know. "I don't know." Seeing this, Si Wenshin frowned a little unhappily, but he didn't explain anything. He just took another drag of his cigarette in silence. As he blew out the smoke, he leaned forward and put out the cigarette in the ashtray. Then he picked up a ring from the coffee table and handed it to her. As soon as Shi Shujing saw the ring, he was overjoyed and hurriedly walked over to take it. He held it in his palm and looked at it several times as if it was a treasure. Finally, he wiped it on his clothes and put it on his finger. Thank you, thank you." When she fainted in Si Wenshin's arms, she did not have any memories but she kept mumbling. Ring? Perhaps it was because she felt awkward. After all, she wasn't familiar with him, so Shi Shujing didn't wait for Si Wenshin to say anything and hurriedly said goodbye. Otherwise, if the awkward silence continued, she would really feel her scalp go numb. "If there's nothing else, then I'll leave first." But after she left, Si Wenshin, who was sitting on the sofa, took out her work pass from his shirt pocket. There was a photo of her on the work pass. She looked no different from the women on the street. She wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and her hair was tied into a bun at the back of her head. She looked more rigid and less gentle. The project manager, Shi Shujing. Next, Shi Shujing took a shower and changed her clothes. When she showered and washed her clothes, she deliberately washed them more carefully than usual. It was a kind of psychological comfort. Chapter 3. Life went on as usual. One day, Shi Shujing came to Qin Baiyuan's office, but was stopped by his secretary. "Monsieur, I'm sorry. President Qin is very busy now. It's not convenient for him to see you." After a pause, the secretary added, "Oh, by the way, Manager Su is also inside." When she added, the secretary smiled, but she couldn't hide the gloating look on her face. In other words, the secretary didn't try to hide her gloating at all. Qin Baiyuan was Shi Shujing's husband. However, everyone in the company knew the relationship between Qin Baiyuan and Su Zhixian. Next to her, Shi Shujing narrowed her eyes. It would be a lie to say that she was not angry at all. However, although the secretary was gloating, she didn't say it directly. Therefore, Shi Shujing couldn't take it seriously. She thought silently for a while and then suppressed the anger in her heart. Her attitude towards the secretary was neither cold nor indifferent. "Can I wait for him here?" Shi Shujing wanted to treat everyone with a good attitude. She was a well-educated and reasonable person. However, some people's attitudes really made her unable to be a lady at all. She could only be a shrew. After finding a seat, Shi Shujing looked down at the documents. Thinking of her husband doing that kind of thing with another woman under her nose, her heart was bleeding, and her hand that was holding the documents was very tight. Now Qin Baiyuan didn't even want to act, even if she knew that he didn't want to be perfunctory with her anymore. When Su Zhixian pushed the door open with a proud face, she saw Shi Shujing at a glance. She moved her eyes. Before walking over, she looked down at herself first. She deliberately tidied up her clothes and slightly opened the neckline, so that Shi Shujing could see the red marks on her neck. Then when she walked over, Su Zhixian's face was already full of smiles. "Monsieur, you're here? Why didn't you let the secretary inform me?" Shi Shujing, who had turned his head, saw her and stood up subconsciously. "I asked the secretary to inform him, but the secretary said that Baiyuan is very busy right now. It's not convenient for him to see anyone. When Su Jixin heard this, she immediately made a reproachful expression. Lil Zhou, no matter how busy President Qin is, you are President Qin's wife. No matter how busy a husband is, he can't possibly not see his wife, right? The next time I see little Zhou, I'll have to give her a good scolding. Shi Shujing smiled bitterly to himself. At the same time, he sneered in his heart. They were all acting. Even she herself was acting. She clearly knew the relationship between Su Jixin and Qin Baiyuan, but on the surface she still couldn't point it out. To be honest, sometimes Shi Shujing really hated this kind of hypocritical way of getting along. She really wanted to be hysterical and act like a shrew, pointing at Su Jixin's nose and yelling, "What are you acting for? Do you really think that others don't know about your relationship with my husband?" Shi Shujing endured the disgusting politeness and walked into the office. As soon as he entered the door, the sweet smell hit him, making Shi Shujing frown immediately. He could pretend to be polite, but the air wouldn't lie. Smelling this smell, Shi Shujing walked in expressionlessly, but his heart was bleeding. Sitting in the leather chair, Qin Baiyuan looked very lazy. His eyelids were half closed, obviously tired and resting. After all, that kind of thing was very tiring. Shi Shujing, who was walking towards him, looked at him in a trance. Qin Baiyuan was still the same as before. He had the cynicism of a rich second generation. It was as if there was nothing he needed to worry about. He was very handsome, but there was a hint of evil in his handsomeness. He was the kind of bad guy that quiet girls liked. Under the open collar of his shirt, there was a woman's lipstick kiss mark on his muscular chest. He just let it be exposed. Even though he knew that Shi Shujing had come in, he didn't plan to put it on properly. It was obvious that he didn't care about her. Anyway, she already knew about the relationship between him and Su Jixin, didn't she? Seeing that he was not even willing to be perfunctory, Shi Shujing smiled bitterly to herself. But in the end, she pretended to be blind and ignored it, pretending that she didn't see it. Chapter 4. As soon as he heard her call his name, Qin Baiyuan seemed to be quite disgusted. His half-closed eyes immediately opened, and in the next second he immediately felt a little smug. Who let you in? Although Shi Shujing looked as if nothing had happened, in fact, Qin Baiyuan believed that what had just happened must have pierced her heart. Shi Shujing walked over and stood opposite the desk. The black marble board reflected her figure. Shi Shujing secretly calmed herself down and put away all her emotions. She didn't want to show a trace of weakness to him. She had a businesslike attitude. "I'm here to report." Qin Baiyuan seemed to hate that she always pretended to be like this, so the more he looked at her, the more he disliked her, and the more impatient his tone became. "Why do you have to report to me? You can apply for a transfer to another department." She was stunned. Not to mention home, now he was not even willing to meet at work? Did he hate her that much? It would be a lie if Shi Shujing said that he wasn't sad to be hated by someone so much. Not to mention that he was her husband, even if he was just an ordinary colleague, or even a passerby on the street, Shi Shujing would still be very concerned about what others thought of her. Her heart was extremely stifled. However, Shi Shujing secretly smiled bitterly. When she looked up, her expression had already returned to a businesslike expression. "I'm very satisfied with the current department, but if you're very dissatisfied with me, you can transfer me away. I didn't cry and beg you to keep me here." Her words almost instantly angered Qin Baiyuan. The man leaned against the back of the chair and immediately leaned forward. He stared at her fiercely, and his face looked inexplicably ferocious. "Do you think I don't want to transfer you away? If it wasn't for Dad's disapproval, do you think you can still stay here today?" Shi Shujing was stunned. It seemed that he really hated her. If he wasn't forced, if there wasn't any other way, he would have found a way to drive her out of the company. Her heart was bleeding, but she had already reached the feeling of numbness. It was also because he was numb to it that nothing mattered anymore. Shi Shujing looked at him quietly, his tone cold. "There's nothing I can do." The man suddenly didn't know what to say. He gritted his teeth and looked at her, but his fists slowly tightened. Sometimes, he really admired Shi Shujing because this was the first time he had seen a person be so shameless to such an extent. No matter what unpleasant words he said, she could bear it and always looked like she was half dead. If someone else had said these words to him, he wouldn't have been able to hold it in at all. He would have been so impulsive that he would have beaten that person up. However, Shi Shujing the weirdo was able to hold it in. Also, Qin Baiyuan hated the way she dressed. Every time he saw her dressed up, his appetite as a man would instantly vanish. She always looked like an old man. She wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and wore a bun that a village woman wore when she entered the city. She always wore a black uniform and her skirt would never go past her knees. She looked like a nun every day. As long as she swayed in front of him, he would feel dizzy when he saw her conservative dress. Not to mention making him interested in her, just looking at her made him want to vomit. She was so ugly that it made him feel disgusted. Qin Baiyuan had never seen such an ugly person, and this person was actually his wife? As he thought about it, Qin Baiyuan couldn't help but look at her up and down again. However, she still looked the same. He felt disgusted when he saw her. If he stayed with her for another second, Qin Baiyuan was afraid that he would really vomit. He turned his head away in disgust and chased her away like a fly. All right. Leave the information here. Hurry up and leave. Shi Shujing also knew that he hated her, so she didn't want to stay any longer in case she made him feel disgusted. Sure, but I have a personal matter to discuss with you. He was disgusted to death. Seeing that she was still finding an excuse to stay, he immediately exploded and turned to glare at her, thinking that she was doing it on purpose. Chapter 5. Beside him, she stood there quietly, looking at him with a somewhat complicated expression. She swallowed her saliva with difficulty. Her whole body was trembling. He didn't point it out, but from his tone, she could tell how impatient he was with her. He was trembling because he was angry. At the same time, he felt wronged. Shamelessly begging others to talk to him was actually very damaging to his self-esteem. She was clearly forcing herself to work hard, but her eyes just wouldn't listen. Somehow, they had turned red and hot tears were welling up in her eyes. Shi Shujing gritted her teeth and forced herself not to let her tears fall. It would be too embarrassing. She adjusted her emotions and tried to make her tone as calm as possible so that she would not cry. You refused to go home. I couldn't find any other chance to talk to you except at the office. Qin Baiyuan, who was sitting on the seat, obviously did not hear anything strange. He was angry when he saw that she could still say such words. Shi Shujing, why are you so shameless? I refuse to go home. I refuse to go home. Have you ever thought about the reason why I refuse to go home? Because I don't want to see you. If you have any shame, sign the divorce papers and get lost. That's my house, not yours. He thought that since he was chasing her away, Shi Shujing would be sensible if she had some shame. But she did not. Sure enough, she was shameless again. Baiyuan, Dad said a few days ago that we will hold our wedding anniversary next week. What wedding? No wedding. Qin Baiyuan was furious when he heard it. He firmly opposed it. When they got married, it was very low-key. They only went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get their marriage certificate. They did not even have the most basic ceremony. Later, the news of their marriage spread. Although Qin Baiyuan did not ask her personally, he had always suspected that it was Shi Shujing, the shameless woman, who had secretly spread it behind his back. Regarding this matter, he was very angry because, at the beginning when he first received the marriage certificate, he had the idea of divorce. So, of course, the fewer people who knew, the better. But she did this behind his back. Tiske, look at this woman's face. Qin Baiyuan really did not want to say anything about her. It was so disgusting. Seeing his objection, Shi Shujing reminded him with a frown. Baiyuan, this is Dad's idea. It would have been better if she had not said so. As soon as she said it, Qin Baiyuan began to feel disgusted again. He looked at her with disgust. Stop calling him Dad. That is my father, not your father. Your father's surname is not Qin. Besides, Shi Shujing, don't use your father to pressure me. Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because he is on your side. If he wasn't afraid of his father and the inheritance of the family property, would he, Qin Baiyuan, have married this ugly woman? He was disgusted every day, and it was all because of her. Over the years, he had threatened her hard and tempted her many times. However, Shi Shujing's attitude of refusing to divorce was as firm as his attitude of rushing to divorce. Because of his father, he did not dare to really touch her. He could only play with women outside and deliberately disgust her. Don't be fooled by his indifferent attitude all day long. In fact, his pain was definitely no less than hers. Shi Shujing did not want to quarrel with him, so he directly changed the topic. If we decide to hold a memorial banquet, then we'd better wear the wedding ring. Actually, there was no need to wear it at all, but she still had a bit of selfishness in it. The two of them wearing the same wedding ring inexplicably added an additional layer of entanglement between them, which was the same effect as the child between a husband and wife. Talking about the wedding ring, Shi Shujing felt a little guilty. Baiyuan, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I can't find the previous pair. I can't find it for a long time, so I can only order a new pair. She was wearing the woman's ring on her finger. Shi Shujing inexplicably felt that it was very hot now. Perhaps it was because she was too nervous that she cared so much about his opinion. The new pair of rings was ordered once. Shi Shujing accidentally flipped through the magazine on his desk and then found that he had folded the corner of the page of the wedding ring advertisement. Chapter 6. Moreover, she was afraid that something would happen during the delivery process, so Shi Shujing had personally flown to England to retrieve the ring. She didn't dare let him know what she had done, for fear that he would hate her even more. Hearing this, Qin Baiyuan frowned. He looked at her for a while and was really puzzled. It's not that I want to criticize you, but Shi Shujing, is that necessary? Now, who doesn't know our relationship? She was used to his bad attitude, so even if she did something wholeheartedly and didn't get his approval, she didn't care. Baiyuan, even if it's an act, you have to go all the way, right? This time the man was silent. He didn't know what he was thinking. After looking at her for a while, he spoke. All right, since it's Dad's idea, then I'll comply for Dad's sake. But don't think I'll be involved in the process. You can think of a way to do this yourself. I'll show my face and leave. Also, don't look for it. You won't be able to find it. I was the one who threw the wedding ring. Hearing this, Shi Shujing froze. Her face was pale and her entire body was trembling. It was unknown if she was angry. What? Baiyuan, what? She had always thought that she had accidentally lost it and she had felt guilty for a long time. During that time she couldn't think it through. Whenever she was free she would search the house, under the sofa, under the bed, and when she couldn't find it she would lose sleep. This kind of daze lasted for a long time, causing her complexion to be very bad and her face to turn green. However, what she cared about caused the man to be upset. Why do you have so many whys? Are you 100,000 whys? The last time I came home I saw the information and thought it was ugly, so I threw it away. Since it's useless, why keep it? At this point, Qin Baiyuan was somewhat pleased. He felt that he must have hurt her heart, and even his brows relaxed. What? Shi Shujing, do you care that much? The little woman in front of him stood there without saying a word. Her head was lowered and for a while he couldn't see her expression. When he saw that she was silent, he became even more disgusted and began to hurl all kinds of malicious words at her. I say, Shi Shujing, can't you have a little bit of self-awareness? Don't tell me you're still delusional that I'll fall in love with you. Over the years I've seen everything you've done for me, but you've also seen it. My attitude in the past has not changed, and my attitude today will not change, and my attitude in the future will not change. Can you please give up? How can you be so shameless? She doesn't like you, yet you insist on sticking to her. Listening to these heartless words, she was so numb that she couldn't feel anything. Shi Shujing was silent for a moment. When she raised her head again, her expression was calm. No one knew what she was thinking. If you hate me so much, if you want a divorce so badly, fine. Baiyuan, I can help you, but you have to give me a child. Otherwise, I won't divorce you. Actually, she didn't really want a divorce because she knew that he wouldn't give her a child. So, she gave him the biggest problem and trapped him. Qin Baiyuan thought that she was crazy. He hated her so much, how could he give her a child? To the point where he couldn't even kiss her. The man was inexplicably angry. A woman like you is really too disgusting. Shi Shujing, can your face be any uglier? Do you think that I'm not miserable enough, and you're going to drag my child down with you? Are you crazy? Crazy. He scolded her for being crazy? Shi Shujing smiled bitterly in her heart. Perhaps she also felt that she was almost crazy. After torturing each other for so long, he wasn't crazy and she was almost crazy. She had thought of letting go, but she was unwilling. That stubborn unwillingness had forced her to persevere until now. He hated her, but she actually didn't hate him that much. Across from her, Qin Baiyuan's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. It was as if she was his enemy and not his wife. Chapter 7. When he returned to his office, Shi Shujing was sitting there, staring at the blue screen of the computer in a daze. Not long after, she received a call from her superior, Qin Wenyu. He did not say the details, but only roughly said that the company wanted to reach a business strategic alliance with the Ocean Group. He asked her to communicate with the people there and take the initiative to seek cooperation. The Ocean Group was a global multinational alliance group, and the public boss C was based in the United Kingdom. Flows End City was only a small subsidiary company under its name. However, this company was the largest in the entire Flows End City. After accepting this job with a professional spirit, Shi Shujing began to learn about relevant information from colleagues and friends in order to prepare in advance. The next day, the highest office building of the Ocean Group. The female secretary pushed the door nervously and walked in. The moment she saw Si Wenxin, her face slightly blushed, and her eyes were full of admiration for her superior. Boss C, Manager Shi of the Blue Sky Group, is here. He said he wants to talk to you about the new real estate development project. Si Wenxin was sitting in his boss chair looking down at the documents. It was not known whether it was out of habit or because he had encountered some trouble, but he held a cigarette in one hand and obviously smoked for a while. When he heard that the surname was Shi, his face was still indifferent, but it was obvious that he was nosy and asked, "Male or female?" "Sure what? What's the full name?" After the female secretary arrived, she stood there obediently. Seeing that Si Wenxin specifically asked about the gender, the female secretary felt a little strange, but she still replied in a businesslike manner, not daring to act rashly. Female, called Shi Shujing. As soon as he heard this name, Si Wenxin almost immediately raised his head. His eyes were filled with a strange light, and he thought silently for a moment, but then he ordered expressionlessly, "Go tell her that I have no intention of cooperating with the Blue Sky Group." Next to him, the female secretary was obviously stunned. She could not guess what her boss C was thinking, but she did not dare to ask more and could only nod subconsciously. Yes. As a result, the Shi Shujing was given the cold shoulder almost as soon as he arrived. A big company was indeed a big company. It would be a lie if Shi Shujing said that he didn't feel a little disappointed. The Qin family's Blue Sky Group was considered one of the top groups in Flowing Sand City. However, because it had only entered the real estate market a few years ago, although it had a strong background, it was still a novice. As far as Flowing City was concerned, there were countless experienced real estate companies that were also large in scale. Therefore, the Ocean Group actually had too many choices. It was not that they could only choose to cooperate with the Blue Sky Group. Shi Shujing was a little anxious. In order to complete her work, she had to shamelessly beg others. "Can you help me report it again? I just want a chance to meet and discuss. I can assure you that I have 100% confidence that your company will be satisfied with my proposal." In fact, she had no confidence at all. She just said that if she did not say this, she could not complete her work. The workplace was very complicated. Sometimes, in order to keep a job, she had to say some empty words like this. However, it was a pity that the other party seemed to know this well and still smiled in a friendly manner. "I'm sorry, our boss C has always been a man of his word. If he said that he will not cooperate with you, then he really will not cooperate with you. Please go back." The euphemistic way of refusal made Shi Shujing anxious, but she could not do anything to the other party, let alone get angry. She was a little disheartened. She secretly lowered her eyes and thought for a moment, but then she raised her head and said firmly, "I will come back tomorrow." Shi Shujing had the idea of waiting until the end. Whoever was the first to be annoyed would be the first to compromise. In fact, the staff who asked for payment basically used this trick. After the female secretary heard this, she still maintained a friendly smile on her face. She did not lose her temper because of Shi Shujing's thick skin. She was indeed a person from a big company with higher quality. Chapter 8. This time Shi Shujing's mood was really depressed from the blow. Was there really no chance at all? She couldn't even see the other party. She didn't even have a chance to start. Wasn't this a waste of her own advantage? Other companies were good, but she thought that the strength of Blue Sky Group was not bad. Although disheartened, Shi Shujing still put on the last glimmer of hope. "Then tell your boss C that I am also a person who will not give up easily. I believe that our Blue Sky has the strength to cooperate with your Ocean Group. I will definitely win the cooperation rights for this project." After Shi Shujing left, the secretary relayed her words to Si Wenxin. The man listened and only smoked lightly. He stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Behind him, the secretary called out nervously, because his thoughts were too difficult to guess. "Boss C." Before the secretary could say anything, Si Wenxin had taken the initiative to interrupt her. "All right, you can go out." This time the female secretary was really dumbfounded. What did he mean now? Should he cooperate with Blue Sky Group? Although there were thousands of questions in her heart, the secretary still did not dare to ask more. She nodded silently and went out. Yes. On the other side, Shi Shujing was sitting in a taxi in a low mood. She had married Qin Baiyuan as soon as she graduated and had been a housewife for a long time. Because Qin Baiyuan hated her, he was not willing to go home at all. Therefore, the chances of her meeting Qin Baiyuan were basically zero. Later, perhaps her father-in-law Qin Yuning could not stand it, so he arranged a position for her in the company. In this way she would have the opportunity to contact Qin Baiyuan. At first she would start from the lower level. Because the higher the position, the more opportunities she had to meet Qin Baiyuan. Therefore, not to mention how hard Shi Shujing worked, she cherished this job very much. No matter how difficult the task given to her, she would do it well. This time, the cooperation with Ocean Group would definitely not be an exception in her life. The first day, the second day, the third day, over and over again Shi Shujing persisted like this for half a month. Every day she went to the Ocean Group to annoy the staff there, but it was useless. They ignored her completely. She came and her attitude wasn't bad. She poured tea for you and gave you a place to sit. However, the real problem was that no one cared about her. If she took the initiative to ask, they would just say that they were busy and had no time. If she wanted to wait, she could wait. If she didn't, they would just leave. Other people were working normally and did not disturb them at all. After persevering for so long, Shi Shujing started to feel impatient. They couldn't possibly continue wasting time like this, right? Moreover, there was no end to it. Her boss didn't say it explicitly, but he secretly hinted that if she couldn't get it, the project would have to be done by someone else. That day, after returning home without any results, Shi Shujing was exhausted to death when she returned home. Because she was worried about work, she didn't even have an appetite to eat. As soon as she walked into the bedroom, her good friend Gao Zhuqing called to ask about the progress of her work. Shi Shujing had to tell him the truth. Knowing that she had been unable to meet the head of Ocean Group, Gao Zhuqing couldn't help but comfort her. Why don't we forget it? In fact, I could have guessed that this would be the result from the beginning. It's Ocean Group. Do you think it's a small group or a small company? Their business is so big. It's not something that you small shrimps can casually make an appointment with. Shi Shujing fell face down on the bed, disheartened. I know, but I just can't accept it. Seeing that she was so persistent, Gao Zhuqing really didn't want to discourage her, but he had to let her see the truth. No, Shujing, let's not talk about whether you can meet them or not. Even if you can meet them, what can you do? Are you really 100% sure that you can convince them? This time Shi Shujing was silent. She actually didn't know either. However, if she couldn't even meet them, how could she talk about the next thing? She had always believed in the principle of, when the road comes to the bridgehead. Zhuqing, I believe that there's a way. People always have to have a thought. Oh, wait a minute, there's a call coming in. I'll call you later. After pressing Gao Zhuqing's number, she picked it up. Hello. Chapter 9. A female voice came from the other end. Hello, Monsieur. I'm the secretary of Boss C of the Ocean Group. Upon hearing this, Shi Shujing almost thought that she had misheard. She went to the Ocean Group every day to wait, but the other party just ignored her. Now, she actually took the initiative to call? She was a little excited and immediately sat up. Ocean Group? On the other end, the secretary smiled slightly. Her attitude was very good and her voice was sweet. Yes, Monsieur. Are you free now? Our boss C wants to talk to you now. Shi Shujing subconsciously took off her phone and glanced at it. It was already past 9 o'clock, which was considered very late. She frowned slightly. However, because the client this time was different, even if the other party did propose to meet a little late, she still did not want to miss the opportunity. After all, it was the other party who had refused to talk to her before. Seeing that she did not reply after a long time, the secretary asked again with uncertainty. Monsieur? Are you free now? Boss C is already waiting for you. Being urged by the other party, Shi Shujing naturally answered quickly. Yes. Where is the address? I'll take a taxi right now. Please wait a moment. In fact, when she hurried out of the door, Shi Shujing felt a little strange. She did not quite understand why the other party wanted to meet at such a late time. She had also thought about it in her mind. However, on second thought, the other party was from the Ocean Group. What kind of woman had he not seen? How could he be interested in an ordinary-looking person like her? Perhaps she was really thinking too much. The other party might really be busy. She should be secretly happy that he could find time to give her a chance to talk to him. Why did she complain so much? The other party was in a high-level meeting during the day. It was not easy to find time for her during dinner, and she was still suspicious? The distance was a little far and there was a little traffic jam. Therefore, when Shi Shujing arrived, it was already an hour later. She had just checked the time on her phone when the waiter took the initiative to greet her. Hello, are you Monsieur? Hearing this, Shi Shujing looked up. She was still a little out of breath. Yes, is Mr. C still here? When others were polite, she was also polite. Sometimes Shi Shujing quite liked this kind of polite attitude between people. However, this kind of politeness seemed to only exist in high-class situations. The waiter smiled and stretched out his hand to ask for instructions. Yes, please follow me, Miss Shi. She followed him. Speaking of which, the terrain here seemed to be a little complicated. Shi Shujing turned around and she was about to get dizzy. There were so many forks in the road. If she were to walk out on her own, she would definitely get lost. Finally, when they reached a wooden door, the waiter stopped and turned to smile at her. Mr. C is inside. Please come in. Shi Shujing nodded at him. Thank you. After the waiter left, she retracted her gaze. She was a little nervous. Then, she adjusted her breathing and tried her best to appear graceful. After all, she represented the company's image. She had to leave a good impression. After adjusting, Shi Shujing pushed the door and went in. When the door opened, the scene inside surprised her. She had also thought that there might be a dinner party inside because that was usually the case. However, Shi Shujing never thought that there would be a hot spring room inside. The dignified Ocean Group actually had an appointment to discuss business in such a place, and at such an inappropriate time. She stayed at the door, not knowing whether to go in or out. Inside there was a man soaking in the hot spring. The steam rose from the gurgling hot water, giving people a hazy feeling. His arms were stretched out, and beside him was a bottle of high-end wine. Shi Shujing felt strange and did not dare to go in. Was this really a business discussion? Seeing that she did not step in, the other party slightly tilted his head to look at her. Why are you standing outside? Come in. Not looking at the whole face, just looking at the side of the face, Shi Shujing was instantly stunned. Because she remembered this face. Wasn't this the man who helped her last time? Chapter 10. Shi Shujing was dumbstruck. She felt dizzy and could not figure out her thoughts. The person she was here to see was the boss C of the Ocean Group, and the man in front of her was the one who had helped her last time. Wait, in other words, this boss C equals the man from last time, and the two of them were actually the same person? No wonder he was so pretentious last time and even asked her if she knew who he was. It turned out that he really had the capital to pretend. However, why did she hear that the boss C of the Ocean Group was quite low-key? Si Wenxin looked at her quietly. She stood at the door in a daze. Perhaps she had rushed over in a hurry, so her hair was messy. She was still wearing her black-rimmed glasses, and she was always wearing the black uniform. Really, he had been looking at it for so many days and he had not changed it at all. Perhaps he was too nervous, his hands were tightly gripping the briefcase. He was not too tall or too short, but he was a little thin. Shi Shujing finally reacted. At least she was not too slow. She seemed to be a little embarrassed. After all, she did not expect him to be the person from last time, so she held back her blushing face and bowed. Hello, Mr. C. I am the manager in charge of the real estate project of the Blue Sky Group. My surname is Shi. You can call me Xiao Shi. Because he had helped her previously, when they met again, Shi Shujing thought that the two of them should have a sense of intimacy. Unexpectedly, he suddenly said something. Manager Shi's perseverance is admirable. Shi Shujing did not know what he meant by that. In any case, she did not dare to have any feelings of intimacy with him. She only had a business-like attitude. Thank you for your compliment, Mr. C. I know that there are many large companies talking to your company, but if Mr. C has seen the plan that our company has given, you will definitely choose our company. She actually did not have that much confidence, but she had to say it this way. If she did not appear to be more confident, she would not be able to arouse the interest of others. She spoke so confidently, in fact, it was more or less a provocation. Unexpectedly, the man only replied indifferently. I've seen it. Si Wenxin calmly poured himself a glass of wine, appearing somewhat careless as if he did not take her seriously. But I'm not interested. As she watched him pour the wine, she really wanted to ask him why he chose this kind of place for the meeting. However, the cooperation had not been confirmed, so she really did not dare to speak carelessly. If she angered him, then her efforts of blocking the door every day for the past few days would be in vain. After hearing that he wasn't interested, Shi Shujing's heart tightened. He didn't have time to think about the location of the meeting. He was just standing at the door and didn't dare to come in, but now he directly walked in. Mr. C, if you don't like that plan, our company can modify it according to your requirements. She just wanted to get the contract signed. Shi Shujing did not understand the mentality of rich people like to pretend. Holding the wine glass, He looked at her through the liquid in the glass with a faint smile on his face. Manager Sure, I admire your perseverance for being able to block the door for so long. Let's not talk about anything else. I reluctantly looked at your company's plan, but I'm really sorry. It turns out that you can't do it if you're not capable. No matter how long you persevere, it's useless. She walked in but did not dare to get too close to him. She just stood far away. Now that she heard that he had rejected her plan, Shi Shujing felt inexplicably wronged. Her eyes instantly turned red. Others only saw the results, but how could they know how difficult the process was? In order to successfully get the contract, she really did not miss a day. She ran every day, even if it was inconvenient to come on rainy days. However, no matter how much she had suffered, how many tears she had shed behind her back, he had rejected her with one sentence. Shi Shujing was a little anxious. As soon as she opened her mouth, she could hear tears. However, she forced herself to adjust her tone, tried to calm herself down and looked at him firmly. Chapter 11. She said it from the bottom of her heart, thinking that she should be able to move Si Wenchen. However, the mentality of a rich man was never something that a small person like her could figure out. Si Wenchen looked at her deeply. Oh, you sound like I'm deliberately targeting someone. Am I targeting your Blue Sky group or you? Shi Shujing was startled by his sudden words and hurriedly tried to explain. No, Mr. C, that's not what I meant. I just... Before she could finish, the man interrupted her. Your voice is too soft. I can't hear you. Come here and talk. Shi Shujing's face turned red. She actually didn't like being ordered around like this, even if it was her husband. She didn't like the way a husband and wife spoke. She would blush. On one hand she was shy, but on the other hand she felt disrespected. Thinking about her purpose of coming here tonight and thinking about work, Shi Shujing gritted her teeth and hesitated. He had already turned around and returned to his original position. If Manager Shi doesn't mind, can you help me massage my shoulders? Hearing this, she frowned and took a few steps forward. However, she did not intend to help him massage his shoulders. Instead, she just stood there. I'm not a technician. If you need it, I can go out and call someone for you now. As she spoke, she was really about to turn around. She had been trying her best to keep a distance from his seemingly unintentional teasing. No matter how he hinted, she adopted a business-like attitude. Unexpectedly, she had only taken 2 steps when the man's voice came from behind her. Don't you know the rules? Can you talk about such an important business secret in front of an outsider? Is Manager Shi a newbie who has just graduated from university? Shi Shujing turned to look at him, but unfortunately he didn't turn around. If Manager Shi decides to call the technician, it's not impossible. However, if the technician comes, Manager Shi doesn't have to follow him back. He didn't point it out, but Shi Shujing could clearly hear the meaning behind his words. He was threatening her. Looking at his back, she frowned. It was just a business. In fact, there was no need to lose her dignity for a business. However, thinking about it, why did she go to his company every day? It was all to sign the bill. Now that he had the upper hand, he didn't force her with a knife on her neck. If she really didn't want to, she could leave, but Shi Shujing didn't want to return empty-handed. In the hot spring, Si Wenchen closed his eyes to rest. He could feel a pair of soft hands on his shoulders, rubbing them uncomfortably. Seeing that she had finally given in, the man's lips curled up proudly. However, he of his mind of one thing, of his mind. He couldn't understand, so he asked. Because he didn't say anything more, Shi Shujing thought about it. She didn't know what he was thinking, so she didn't ask anything. Rubbing his shoulders, she felt very awkward. She didn't even massage Qin Baiyuan's shoulders, and that man wouldn't let her touch him. He didn't even have the time to dislike him, so how could he let her touch his body? The spring water gurgled and the mist rose. After a while, the rising water vapor blurred her glasses and she couldn't wipe them off. Shi Shujing didn't want to take off her glasses in front of others, but now she had no choice. She couldn't see anything, so she could only take them off. In front, Si Wenchen seemed to be enjoying her service. Use more strength. Originally, he might have just told her to rub harder, or maybe he didn't mean anything else. However, in Shi Shujing's ears, it didn't feel good. After all, she didn't have much of a relationship with him. Now that they were getting along in this way, it was really too strange. She was a little bashful and instinctively increased her strength. Her voice sounded annoyed and shy. Is this okay? She didn't expect him to reply indifferently. Chapter 12. This time Shi Shujing was speechless. She could only use more strength, but she didn't know what the man's skin was made of. She used more strength, but all she heard was him repeating himself. Use more strength. Use more strength. Did you not eat? Can you use a little more strength? In the end, Shi Shujing's arm was sore. This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that he said those words. She didn't know whether he did it on purpose or not. In any case, she was ashamed to death when she heard it. Please, she was a working woman from a good family, not the kind of person who worked at night. Just as Shi Shujing was letting her imagination run wild, the man suddenly spoke. Manager Shi's technique seems to be okay. Is it because you often rub CEO Qin's shoulders to practice? His words clearly meant that he knew she was a married woman. Since he knew, why did he ask her to rub his shoulders? Shi Shujing always thought that he didn't know, so he was just teasing her. However, who could guess the thoughts of these rich people? Perhaps he liked married women. But, thinking that he should be a man with high taste, Shi Shujing felt that it was a pity. He clearly had a handsome face, but why did he like to do such despicable things? She didn't want to talk to him about this. She thought that she was a married woman, but she still used her body to serve him. She felt that her behavior was somewhat disgusting, so she adopted a business-like attitude. As for the proposal, I hope that Mr. C can consider it carefully. If you are not satisfied, our company can follow your request and revise the new proposal in 2 days. He was still resting with his eyes closed, enjoying her service. As for the new proposal that can be produced in 2 days, I don't have any hope at all. Seeing that she had already rubbed his shoulders, but he was still unsure whether or not to cooperate with Blue Sky Group, Shi Shujing was a little anxious. She felt that she was at a disadvantage, so she immediately stopped. Mr. C, Blue Sky Group is the leading enterprise in Flozen City. In fact, there are many companies looking forward to cooperating with us. So, please believe that our company has a certain level of strength. She wanted to prove the strength of her company, but he seemed to have heard something and was a little unhappy on the spot. If your company is so powerful, why are you begging me now? Wasn't he being cheap? Shi Shujing was very upset. She frowned and hesitated. That's true. However, although we have the right to choose a company to cooperate with, we hope to choose a company that we can cooperate with. Mr. C. Before she could finish, Si Wenxin had already stretched out his hand. She seemed to have a telepathic connection. Without him saying anything, she immediately took the glass and handed it to him. Si Wenxin glanced at her hand and didn't say anything. He took the glass and took a sip. Manager Shi, I have to compliment you on your skills. But if you keep pestering me about our collaboration and make me unhappy, I'm not afraid to tell you that it's not beneficial for our collaboration at all. Upon hearing this, Shi Shujing immediately felt like he was going to explode. What was this man trying to do? She didn't know what he had to do to make him sign the contract. She originally thought that if she lowered her pride and massaged his shoulders, he would be able to sign the contract smoothly. However, she didn't know if she misunderstood or if he liked to act shamelessly. Right now, he didn't seem to be prepared to discuss the collaboration at all. Shi Shujing had a feeling that she wanted to immediately go berserk, but she held back. In this kind of situation, if she walked out of the door now, then there would be no cooperation. Not to mention this cooperation, she was afraid that they would never cooperate again in this lifetime. If they offended each other, there would be no way to reconcile. Fortunately, in the following massage, other than humming a few times when it was extremely comfortable, Si Wenxin didn't cross the line. She was thinking about something, so she was a little focused on the massage. When the man's hand suddenly touched her hand, Shi Shujing was shocked and hurriedly withdrew her hand. Chapter 13. Si Wenxin's tone was rather calm. I just wanted to kindly remind you that the ring will become slippery when it touches the water. Manager Shi seems to care a lot about this wedding ring. He probably doesn't want the ring to fall into the spring and not be able to find it, right? In this situation, it seemed as if she was too sensitive. Shi Shujing was extremely embarrassed. Her face was burning hot, and she didn't know how to describe the feeling in her heart. No matter whether his touch this time was intentional or not, Shi Shujing's heart was in a mess. She felt that she couldn't continue like this, so she hurriedly stood up. I should go back. When the man heard this, he still had that calm expression, as if he didn't think that the touch just now was a big deal. And all right. Manager Shi, thank you for your hard work. As he spoke, he suddenly stood up from the hot spring, scaring Shi Shujing so much that she screamed and quickly turned around. Ah, this man was he really unintentional, or was he pretending to be intentional? Some awkwardness could clearly be avoided, but she just didn't understand why he didn't know how to be self-conscious. Shi Shujing didn't know if there was a towel around his waist. The hot spring water kept rising, and her vision was already hazy. In addition, when she was rubbing his shoulders, she was self-conscious and didn't deliberately look at that part of him. When he stood up, she had already turned around in time, so she didn't see it too clearly. Shi Shujing covered her eyes with both hands and didn't dare to look. She only heard rustling sounds coming from beside her, and didn't know what he was doing. Then, not long after, she felt that he seemed to have walked in front of her. "You can take your hand away now." Hearing this, she was embarrassed and annoyed. She really didn't understand why this man didn't know how to be self-conscious. "Are you wearing any clothes? If I take it away?" She couldn't see it, but Shi Shujing could hear the man's low laughter. Following that, he directly reached out and grabbed her hand. Looking at it, she saw that he had used a bath towel to wrap around his waist. The bath towel was dry, so she couldn't figure out if he had just changed the bath towel, or if he hadn't worn it at all and had just put it on again. Moreover, this damn man, why didn't he wrap it better? The towel was loosely wrapped around him and looked as if it could fall off at any time. Shi Shujing's heart was stuffed and his obsessive-compulsive disorder flared up. He wished he could reach out and help him wrap it tightly. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but blush. Si Wenchen just had to tease her at this time. Manager Shi's face is so red. "Haven't you seen a man's body? Haven't you seen your husband's body?" When he said those words, Shi Shujing felt that he was acting like a hooligan. Because the two of them were standing so close to each other and he was wearing so little, she instinctively took a few steps back. She wanted to put some distance between them so that he wouldn't accidentally touch her again. However, she did not expect that she would suddenly step on empty air. She was so shocked that she cried out in alarm. "Ah!" Si Wenchen, who was opposite her, reached out his hand, probably wanting to pull her up. But it seemed that it was too late. Shi Shujing fell into the hot spring with a bam sound. In an instant, the water splashed everywhere. Luckily, the buoyancy of the water supported her, so she wasn't injured. The man quickly came to the side of the pool and reached out his hand to her. No matter how serious a man was, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. "I say, are you all right now? Are you that afraid of me? Why must you keep your distance from me?" Shi Shujing, who was in the water, didn't have the time to talk nonsense with him. At this moment, she couldn't be bothered anymore. She reached out to him and grabbed his hand, borrowing his strength to get up. She really wanted to curse and swear. If it wasn't because he didn't have self-awareness, would she end up like this? Shi Shujing really felt like she was going crazy from anger. However, it wasn't good for her to fall out with him. Following that, when the two of them walked out of here together, she wasn't in a good mood and didn't say a word along the way. The man beside her was tall and strong. So when the slanted street light shone from his side, her body was completely shrouded in his shadow, making Shi Shujing look very petite. When the chauffeur stopped the luxury car in front of the two of them, she turned to look at him. Chapter 14. She actually wanted to say that she had already accompanied him so she could sign the contract, right? However, Shi Shujing really could never guess the thoughts of these rich people. He did not answer directly, only looked at her and said lightly, "I'll send you back." Shi Shujing naturally understood what he meant. Seeing that he was still delaying, she inexplicably felt a little annoyed, and her tone finally became a little impatient. "No need, I'll take a taxi back myself. There's no need to trouble you." With that, she was about to leave. Unexpectedly, Si Wenchen grabbed her arm. She was forced to turn around only to see his deep gaze. "Afraid that Co Chin will misunderstand? Do you think it's inconvenient?" She was stunned and suddenly didn't know how to answer. Actually, it was more or less a little, but not all. The main thing was that he refused to agree and she felt annoyed with him. Everything that had happened tonight made Shi Shujing feel like she was accompanying him for nothing. However, the man did not allow her to answer. He directly grabbed her, opened the car door and stuffed her in. Seeing this, Shi Shujing shouted anxiously, "Hey Si Wenchen, what are you doing?" As he listened, he couldn't be bothered with her. After shoving her into the car, he didn't go to the other side. Instead, he forcefully squeezed his way into the car while holding onto her arm, afraid that she would push the other car door and run away. "And this is the first time you've called me by my name." Shi Shujing was really depressed. She was talking to him, but he was talking about the West. Because he had squeezed in, she had no choice but to move to the side and make room for him. After the man sat down, he closed the door and turned to the driver in front of him. "Drive." His hand was grabbing her and he didn't let go at all. After the car drove away, he only retracted his hand. Then he calmly said something that she didn't know if it could be considered an explanation. It's quite late now. If you go to the bus stop to take a taxi, I'm afraid something will happen to you. Let's not talk about whether you can get a taxi or not. Aren't you afraid of meeting one or two idiots and touching you? Hearing this, Shi Shujing was stunned. She was not a princess living in a fairy tale world. There were many dark things in society. Therefore, when she saw that he was concerned about her safety and that he was afraid that something would happen to her, Shi Shujing was instantly warmed up. Shi Shujing lowered his head and did not say a word. It was indeed heartwarming, but she wanted to talk to him about the cooperation. However, if she said it, he would probably change his attitude. He didn't know if it was because of his concern just now that she felt less threatened by him. In any case, Shi Shujing would never fall asleep in a stranger's car. Now, because it was late at night, the human body was already sleepy, so she didn't have much of a resistance towards him. Her eyelids slowly fell shut. However, even though she had fallen asleep, she did not lean against him. Instead, she curled herself into a ball and nestled in the corner. Si Wenchen had a complicated look in his eyes. What had she experienced all these years? So much so that he was so guarded against people now? Back then she was as cute as a pure little rabbit. The man sighed softly in his heart. In the end, he had brought her over and let her sleep in his arms. Shi Shujing let out a soft moan, which should have been unconsciously made. Perhaps she felt the warmth, she burrowed into his abdomen. It would have been better if she didn't burrow, but once she did, Si Wenchen couldn't take it anymore and let out a low moan. He looked at her and chuckled, ignoring the presence of the driver in front of him. In his arms, Shi Shujing's breathing was even. The man looked at her sleeping face and had an inexplicable urge. He didn't suppress it and lowered his head to kiss her lips. Perhaps only when she was asleep could she be more obedient. After all, he had only touched her hand in the hot spring, and her reaction was so strong. Not to mention kissing her lips. A car drove over from the side of the road. The car lights shone in and Si Wenchen's face looked warm in the light. He looked at her with love in his eyes. She should have been his. However, Si Wenchen couldn't understand why she had completely forgotten about him after the two of them had the most unforgettable night. She was even married. Chapter 15. Fortunately, Qin Baiyuan, that fool, treated diamonds as glass and did not know how to cherish them. He heard that her marriage had not been good these years, so he still had a chance. He was afraid that she would really fall in love with Qin Baiyuan, and then he would not be able to control the situation. Next, when Shi Shujing woke up and found herself in Si Wenchen's arms, she was really shocked. She quickly sat up and was so nervous that she stuttered. How could I? As she spoke, she took out her phone and pressed it, only to find that it was already 1 o'clock in the night. She was shocked again and quickly looked at him. Sorry, Now, apart from hurriedly apologizing, it seemed that she did not know what to say. The car had obviously stopped, so he did not wake her up. Shi Shujing did not know what he meant and did not dare to ask. She was afraid that if she asked, she would hear more embarrassing words. She was already a married woman and she could not do this. Si Wenchen looked at her calmly, as if the warmth when she was asleep was a different person. Now there was only a faint sense of alienation. It's okay. Seeing this, Shi Shujing did not know what to say, but could only nod and turn to open the door. Thank you for sending me back. See you tomorrow. Just as one foot was out of the car, Si Wenchen suddenly handed her a business card. She looked at it, startled, and looked at him in confusion. However, the man did not seem to have any intention of explaining, but just looked at her quietly. Shi Shujing had no choice but to take it. She glanced at the business card. It was printed with his name and phone number. At this time, the man was willing to speak up. This is my private number. Call me if you need anything in the future. Generally, the phone number of those rich people would be divided into work and private numbers. Since he was willing to give her his private number, Shi Shujing did not know what it meant. She always felt that with tonight's contact, the distance between the two seemed to be inexplicably closer. It also seemed that it was just her illusion, that the two of them had maintained the original distance. Shi Shujing could not understand it either. She only felt that her mind was in a mess. With a smile, she responded to his business card with the businesslike attitude of a professional. Thank you, Boss C. About the cooperation, you can consider it carefully. I hope we will have more opportunities to contact each other in the future. Seeing that she mentioned cooperation again, Si Wenchen obviously changed his attitude and looked at her without saying a word. Shi Shujing also felt it. He smiled at him and didn't say anything more. He turned around and went out. He sat in the car and watched her leave. Out of the corner of his eye, Si Wenchen immediately noticed the figure of the man standing in the sunlight with his arms crossed. Seeing this, Si Wenchen's lips curled up coldly, and he felt a little proud in his heart. It was good that he saw it. He was afraid that Qin Baiyuan couldn't see it. Si Wenchen retracted his gaze, his face cold. Drive. The chauffeur started the car and drove away. Shi Shujing, who was walking away, subconsciously looked back. Looking at the other party's car driving away, she felt a little complicated. After entering home, Shi Shujing found that the lights in the living room were still on. It was strange. It was so late. Who was still awake? She was very tired and didn't have time to think so much. However, after opening the bedroom door, she was really surprised to see Qin Baiyuan at home. Why are you back? From his tone, it seemed that there was a lot of surprise. After all, he rarely went home. Qin Baiyuan seemed a little unhappy with her words. He glanced at her arrogantly and didn't give her a good look. This is my home. Is it strange for me to come back? Hearing his words, Shi Shujing couldn't find a word to answer, and Qin Baiyuan didn't wait for her to answer. Thinking of the scene he had just seen, he was inexplicably angry, and his tone was somewhat sour and sarcastic. Or, you have done something shameful, and you are afraid that I will come back and find out about your shameful things? Hearing this, Shi Shujing got angry and rushed forward to argue with him. What do you mean? What shameful things have I done? Qin Baiyuan was already angry. Now seeing that she was still so righteous, he was even angrier. He didn't give in and quarreled with her on the spot. Chapter 16. However, she was stunned and instantly thought of Si Wenchen just now. It would have been better if Shi Shujing did not behave like this. But when she behaved like this, Qin Baiyuan was even more furious. He was sure that she was cheating on him behind his back. His face was gloomy and could turn ferocious at any time. Just now. He pointed outside the balcony and yelled at her. Who's the man driving the luxury car? Shi Shujing, when did you hook up with such a rich man? You're good, you're really capable. He was talking non-stop and his emotions were obviously really agitated. At the side, Shi Shujing only felt that he was really unlucky. It was rare for him to come back, but he did not expect that he would bump into such a big misunderstanding the moment he came back. Although she was angry at him and thought that he did not understand her, Shi Shujing more or less understood the reason why he was angry. She turned around and started to prepare to take a shower. Her tone was indifferent, and she did not want to argue with him at all. He's just a client of our company. Qin Baiyuan didn't believe her at all. He took a step forward and chased after her. He grabbed her hand and refused to let her go anywhere. Oh, our company's client? Which client? Tell me, I'll see if our company really has this client. Shi Shujing, can you still be so shameless? Since when does our company require our employees to talk business until 1 in the morning and not go home? Moreover, it's a man and a woman alone. Can you tell me what kind of business you're talking about in the middle of the night? He did not say it directly, but his words made Shi Shujing very angry. Even if she could understand why he was angry, she was also a human and had dignity. So, Shi Shujing shook off his hand and shouted at him angrily. Qin Baiyuan, can you watch your mouth? I don't want to quarrel with you. Things are not what you think. However, when she started to talk about the details, she really could not continue. Should she say that she had been massaging Si Wenchen's shoulders the whole night? Moreover, she had waited on him for nothing and did not even manage to negotiate the contract. When Qin Baiyuan heard this, he would probably die of anger. Moreover, if she said that the two of them had only massaged his shoulders and did not do anything else, based on Qin Baiyuan's intelligence, he would not believe it at all. He would definitely be suspicious and think that the two of them had done something shameful. When the man saw that she suddenly stopped, he immediately pointed at her, as if he had finally caught a small weakness. See, you can't say it, can you? Shi Shujing, you're so cheap. How can you be so cheap? You obviously went to have an affair, but you still have the nerve to use work as an excuse. Shi Shujing, you're too shameless. She suddenly sneered in her heart. Even if she had gone to have an affair, how much better could you, Qin Baiyuan, have done than me? Could it be that you're very clean and virtuous? No matter how cheap she is, she's no different from you, Qin Baiyuan. You're just the same. However, there were some words that Qin Baiyuan could say without hesitation, but Shi Shujing couldn't. She knew that with Qin Baiyuan's character, as long as she dared to say these things, their relationship would be completely broken, so she could only endure it. There's really nothing between me and him. Believe it or not, I've never done anything wrong to you. Unexpectedly, Qin Baiyuan suddenly sneered and said in a completely sarcastic tone. Why are you trying so hard to explain this to me? Do you think I'm asking you because I'm nervous? How ridiculous. He seemed to want to leave and had already turned around, but then he turned back and pointed at her nose, warning her fiercely. Sure Shujing, I beg you to get this straight. To me you're nothing. You can fool around with whoever you like. This has nothing to do with me. But don't try to put a hat on me. If you want to be cheap, it's your own business. Get a divorce tomorrow. Our Qin family can't afford to lose face like this. The man turned around and walked away, but he came back after taking 2 steps. This time his face really became ferocious. Finally, I wish you a long life. Don't do it and end up dying of those diseases. Shi Shujing was so angry that his heart was bleeding. She really didn't want to quarrel with him. The foundation of their relationship was not good. If they quarreled like this, she was afraid that the cracks would become more and more obvious. Chapter 17. Seeing that he was about to leave, she subconsciously asked, "Where are you going?" It was already so late. He was not afraid of something happening, but she was afraid that something would happen to him. Society was not peaceful. Even if it was just a good stranger, she would still try to persuade him. However, others did not take her kindness seriously. He did not even stop walking. It's none of your business. Seeing that he was already at the door, Shi Shujing became anxious and immediately chased after him. She still hoped that he would not run around at night. A man's safety awareness was not as high as a woman's. You only come back once in a while. Qin Baiyuan didn't even bother with her. I came back tonight just to see my mother. Otherwise, do you think I came back to see you? Are you stupid? Do you think you'll become beautiful after finding a wild man? Why don't you take a mirror and look at your ugly face? When talking about wild men, he suddenly stopped and finally turned to look at her. Although he was smiling, Shi Shujing felt that it was an eyesore. Well, that's right. If you want to find a wild man, I won't stop you, but you better King sign the divorce papers. If you want to take the title of Qin Baiyuan's wife and have a man outside, then let me tell you, Shi Shujing, you're thinking too much. Don't challenge my bottom line. I'm warning you. She was angry and annoyed. She really could not understand why Qin Baiyuan would think of her like this. Baiyuan, I've explained it to you. He is just a client of the company. We really did not do anything out of line. All these years, even if you betrayed me, I have never done anything to betray you. Thinking of the grievances she had suffered all these years, Shi Shujing could not help choking and silently lowered her head. The man did not expect her to cry and was stunned on the spot. He felt annoyed and did not leave. He stood there alone for a while and then suddenly thought of something. He suddenly looked up and coldly stared at her. He also walked towards her. Shi Shujing, do you dare to swear to God that you've never done anything to betray me? Walking in front of her, he grabbed her collar and pulled her towards him. The veins on his forehead were popping out. However, Shi Shujing was confident and wasn't afraid of him at all. He looked into his eyes with determination. I dare, Baiyuan, I swear to the heavens that I've never done anything wrong to you. Haven't you seen how I feel about you? Shi Shujing really didn't understand men. Just like how she couldn't figure out Si Wenchen's thoughts, she also couldn't figure out Qin Baiyuan's thoughts. She had clearly poured out her heart and lungs to him, but the two men were the same. They didn't care about her feelings at all. TSK Shi Shujing, you're really good at acting. Why don't you become an actor with such good acting skills? Don't think that I don't know what you did back then. I know it, but I don't want to talk about it. Her stomach was filled with bewilderment. What do you mean? You've made it clear. What did I do? Did I do anything wrong to you back then? However, she wanted to know, but Qin Baiyuan didn't want to talk about it, as if mentioning it would make him feel disgusted. Still pretending? Fine, continue to pretend. Shi Shujing, with your attitude, even if I catch a snake to bite you today, you won't admit it. But you know it and I know it too. So hurry up and sign the divorce papers. Don't waste time here. You make me feel disgusted. He must really hate her, especially when she mentioned it. She saw that Qin Baiyuan was really merciless. He pushed hard and with a fling motion, Shi Shujing fell on her butt on the floor. She didn't even have time to react. Fortunately, she fell on her butt. If she accidentally fell on her head, Qin Baiyuan could be considered murderous. If he didn't care about the other party's life, then he should have no feelings at all. Shi Shujing felt very wronged. She burst into tears on the spot. Although her body was in pain, she could never resist the pain of her heart being blocked. Gao Zhuqing was right. What was the use of guarding a marriage like this? Chapter 18. After resting on the floor for a long time, Shi Shujing was able to stand up. The big room was empty. She looked at it and felt even more uncomfortable. She held the phone and didn't know who to call. Suddenly she thought of Si Wenchen. But on second thought, she wasn't familiar with him. How could she tell others about her family matters? There was really no other way. Shi Shujing could only call Gao Zhuqing. The other party should be asleep. In the first 2 or 3 calls, Gao Zhuqing didn't pick up at all, so she foolishly continued to call. She also didn't know whether it was good to disturb others in the middle of the night. But she was really too uncomfortable. If she didn't find someone to talk to, she was afraid that she would become depressed. Shi Shujing thought that it would be fine to call a few more times, but she didn't expect that Gao Zhuqing actually picked up the phone at this time. Her voice was obviously confused. She should be forcibly woken up by the phone. Hello? Who is it? Maybe it was because she just woke up and didn't have time to look at the phone screen. She just put it to her ear, so when Shi Shujing heard her voice, she felt a little guilty. Zhuqing, I'm sorry. As she spoke, she began to cry. As soon as Gao Zhuqing heard her crying, her sleepiness immediately disappeared, and she also woke up. She hurriedly looked at her phone, and after confirming the time, she put it back to her ear and asked worriedly. It's so late, Shujing, why aren't you sleeping? Shi Shujing didn't answer and only cried uncomfortably. She could only cry in front of Gao Zhuqing. On the other end, Gao Zhuqing didn't need to ask more. In fact, she had already guessed most of it. Generally, nothing could make Shi Shujing cry, even if it was trouble brought about by work. It was probably related to Qin Baiyuan. Say something. Did that B** Qin Baiyuan do something to you again? She wanted to answer, but her throat was so uncomfortable that she couldn't speak at all. Gao Zhuqing didn't wait for her to answer and sighed to himself. He was really helpless about Shi Shujing's matter. Shujing, don't blame me for being rude. Sometimes I really don't understand. Is that scumbag Qin Baiyuan so good? I really don't see anything outstanding about him. Do you have to lower yourself to this extent for him? If a man doesn't love you, whatever you do will be wrong in his eyes. On the contrary, if he loves you, even if you are Sudaji who has done all sorts of bad things, he will still think that you are the best. Hearing this, Shi Shujing choked with sobs. I know, but Zhuqing, I just can't accept it. I can't let it go. Do you understand? No, you won't understand. You aren't me, so how would you understand my feelings? Gao Zhuqing was most annoyed and afraid that Shi Shujing would do this to her. Actually, she felt that Shi Shujing was really a smart person. She was hardworking and motivated. Look at her. She hadn't been in the company for long and she already got such a high position. But everyone had their flaws. Everyone had a stubborn side. Shi Shujing's stubbornness was basically reflected in her feelings. Once she couldn't get over it and couldn't let it go, it was useless no matter how outsiders persuaded her. Gao Zhuqing also couldn't think of a solution and could only sigh. Then what do you want to do? Drag it out with him like a lunatic? Shujing, don't blame Qin Baiyuan for scolding you as a lunatic. I also want to scold you as a lunatic. I say, why can't you let it go? Can't you just get a divorce and find a new man? Divorce. Basically, everyone wanted her to get a divorce. Hearing these words, Shi Shujing suddenly became very quiet and stopped crying. Not knowing what she was thinking, she suddenly said these words that made Gao Zhuqing's heart feel stifled. I want a child, his child. Gao Zhuqing, who was on the phone, felt that she was crazy and was so angry that she directly scolded her. Shujing, I don't think you're as simple as a lunatic. You really have to go see a brain doctor tomorrow. I say, I just can't understand you. How can I not know what you're thinking? What do you want a child for? You want a child because you don't want to give up and vainly try to use family to keep him. Shi Shujing didn't make a sound. It was also unknown whether she agreed or disagreed with Gao Zhuqing's explanation. On the other end, Gao Zhuqing tried to persuade her. Chapter 19. However, Shi Shujing was silent again and she murmured. Then what should I do? Zhuqing, help me think of a way. I really don't know what to do. She cried again. Gao Zhuqing felt annoyed and suddenly stopped talking as if she was thinking. Then, not knowing what she thought of, she asked Shi Shujing in a serious tone. Shujing, are you sure, 100% sure with me that after having his child you can return to normal, divorce him and stop being a lunatic? On the side, Shi Shujing's heart trembled. She could feel the seriousness in Gao Zhuqing's tone. In fact, she didn't know what Gao Zhuqing wanted to do, but she cared about Qin Baiyuan now and didn't want to let go. What she was doing now was also based on her current mood. Yes, there was some uncertainty in her tone. However, after Gao Zhuqing got her affirmative answer, she said firmly, "Okay, Shujing, don't worry, I will help you think of a way to solve this problem. Now you should have a good rest. What time is it now? You still have to work tomorrow, promise me be a normal person first, okay?" The next day, at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Shi Shujing finally received the new proposal, which was revised by her subordinates overnight. She carefully checked it, and after confirming that there were no problems, she printed it out, then took the document bag and hurried to Ocean Group. Her superior told her that Ocean Group didn't stop contacting other companies. In other words, Si Wenchen didn't wait for her at all just because she accompanied him. This damn man, now Shi Shujing really didn't know what to say to him. It seemed that she really misunderstood, thinking that if she accompanied him, he should look at Blue Sky Group in a different light. Now that this time had passed, Si Wenchen should have just gotten off work. In this way she didn't have to wait too long, she could go to Ocean Group and wait for a few minutes, then she would be able to see him. This was the little idea in Shi Shujing's heart. However, plans could never keep up with changes. When Shi Shujing arrived, the staff of the Ocean Group said that Si Wenchen had already left early. At first, the staff refused to say anything. It was only after Shi Shujing used her shameless attitude and pestered him in every possible way that she finally got the address of the restaurant where Si Wenchen had his dinner. As soon as she opened the car door, she saw Si Wenchen. The man was sitting by the window. Shi Shujing's eyes moved. She actually liked to sit by the window, but she couldn't tell the specific reason. Si Wenchen was still dressed in a suit and was drinking a cup of high-end coffee. Just as he took a sip, a female voice suddenly came from behind him. Si Wenchen was startled and subconsciously turned to look, only to see Shi Shujing smiling. "Hello, bossy." Dressed in the same black business attire, she looked a little nervous, which made her seem more reserved. Looking at her slightly flattering smile, Si Wenchen didn't feel too disgusted. Si Wenchen didn't seem surprised to see her here. Or perhaps, after knowing her for so long, he had already seen through her coaxing and pestering. She wouldn't give up easily unless she was 100% desperate, just like her marriage. She still refused to divorce, probably because she hadn't given up enough hope for Qin Baiyuan. The man stopped thinking and nodded at her calmly. "Manager Shi." Shi Shujing looked at the seat. "Can I sit down?" He reached out his hand like a gentleman. "Please sit down." Thus she didn't stand on ceremony and sat down. "Thank you." Then Si Wenchen asked the waiter to order some food and drinks for her. After the waiter left, his gaze fell on her face. "I'm just curious, how did Manager Shi know I was here? Did my secretary reveal my whereabouts to you?" When she heard this, her face and ears turned red. She had pestered him too much. Actually, she didn't like to bring trouble to other people's lives at all, no matter who it was. However, now that she had to work, even if her pestering annoyed him, she could only continue. Chapter 20. She was afraid that Si Wenchen would be so angry that he would fire the secretary, so she was eager to plead for others. After all, Shi Shujing didn't like to do things that implicated others. The man knew her worry, but he just smiled slightly. "Don't be nervous. I won't fire her." After getting his promise, Shi Shujing felt a little relieved. She knew that he was very annoyed with her talking about cooperation, but she only looked for him for this matter. So, even though she knew that he would be disgusted, she still braced herself and said it. "Boss C, this is the new plan that our company revised overnight. Take a look and see if there is anything you are not satisfied with. We can change it again." As she spoke, she had skillfully taken out the relevant documents from her briefcase. Shi Shujing wanted to hand it over with both hands, which would show more sincerity, but she couldn't understand Si Wenchen's mind, so she didn't do it in the end. Instead, she put it on the table and pushed it over. If she handed it over with both hands, he would not give her face and refuse to take it. That would be really embarrassing. The man's eyes fell on the document, but he really didn't reach out to take it. His eyes fell on her face again. He was clearly refusing others, but he looked so calm and natural. "Manager Shi, this is a restaurant, so you should know that it's private time now. Do you like Manager Shi to go to your house to knock on the door for work at night?" Although she said that, Shi Shujing really wanted to curse. "I want to talk to you during work time, but you won't see me during work time. What else can I do?" She felt that Si Wenchen was deliberately making things difficult for her. With so much time to do so many things, how many minutes would it take for you to take a look? She was angry in her heart, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. She still had a good attitude for fear of offending this master. Boss C, first of all, I'm very sorry for taking up your private time, but our company is really sincere. I hope you can take a look, just a look, okay? At the end of the words, she felt that her voice was a little choked. It was too bitter. Sure, Shujing only felt this way. Si Wenchen didn't say anything. He looked at her deeply and she didn't know if he heard the sob in her voice. In the end, the man didn't say anything, but he was finally willing to reach out his noble hand to take the document. You can take a look, but if I ask for an increase of 20% net profit on the original basis, will your company cooperate? Hearing this, Sure Shujing's face turned pale with fright. The original plan had already given a lot of benefits to the Ocean Group. Now they had to give up another 20%. It was not much of a profit at all. It was purely for show. However, before she could recover from the profit incident, Si Wenchen glanced at the document briefly, then casually threw it back on the table. Manager Sher's perseverance is indeed admirable. I really want to make an exception for Manager Sher's persistence, but unfortunately this new plan is still rubbish. I'm sorry. Seeing that she had changed it according to his original requirements, but Si Wenchen was still not satisfied, Sure Shujing was inexplicably angry. You didn't even look at it carefully. Can you read the entire document at a glance? Isn't it a little too decisive to reject it immediately? She was both angry and wronged. Really, this kind of begging was too frustrating. Sometimes she really wanted to leave in a fit of pique. It was up to her whether she wanted him or not, as if she couldn't live without him. Because she didn't try to hide it, Si Wenchen could already see that she was angry. The man calmly lit a cigarette. He took a puff and slowly exhaled the smoke. Because he didn't turn his head, the white smoke blew directly at her face. Is Manager Sher doubting my judgment? If that's the case, I didn't beg Manager Sher to let you cooperate with our company. Why is Manager Sher looking for trouble here? Her eyes turned red. Chapter 21. The discussion was not pleasant, so neither of them spoke a word. Sure Shujing had no intention of taking the initiative to leave, and Si Wenchen had no intention of chasing her away either. The two of them just sat there wasting time. The atmosphere was unusually strange. She wanted to leave in a fit of pique, but this was not the result she wanted. Even if she returned home empty-handed, she would only feel endless disappointment. Not long after, suddenly, a man's voice came from behind. Sorry I'm late. Si Wenchen calmly raised his hand and looked at his watch. No, you're not late. I'm early. After the man arrived, Si Wenchen glanced at Sure Shujing and gestured. This is Manager Dai from Hengyo Real Estate. She then realized that the other party had invited a business partner to discuss business, but now the situation had become that she was snatching the business. Sure Shujing was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She did not know whether to leave or stay. She was so embarrassed that she did not know what to do. She did not know what was on Si Wenchen's mind that he did not introduce Sure Shujing to Manager Dai. Fortunately, Manager Dai was a tactful person and did not ask much. After a few simple greetings, he began to get to the point. After the man read the proposal that Manager Dai handed over to him, he very naturally passed it to Sure Shujing and then talked to Manager Dai himself. She was a little embarrassed, thinking that this was after all a business secret. He just passed it to a third party without the other party knowing. Moreover, it was a third party who belonged to his competitor. Was this really good? Because Si Wenchen did not expose her identity, if Sure Shujing did not take it now, Manager Dai would feel strange. In the embarrassment, she had to play along with Si Wenchen, pretending to be his accompanying secretary, and took it to read. After flipping through a few pages, Sure Shujing could not stay calm. At this moment, she finally understood that there was always someone better than her. When she was revising the plan, she had always thought that her plan was the most perfect in the world. But now, Si Wenchen had made her completely understand how much she had been deceiving herself and others, and how narrow-minded she was. In terms of rigor and professionalism, the risk of the plan in her hand was far lower than the plan given by the Blue Sky Group. If it were her, she would not be willing to cooperate with the Blue Sky Group. Just now, she thought that Si Wenchen did not respect the fruits of her labor, but now it seemed that her plan was indeed not good enough. It wasn't that it wasn't good enough. There was no such thing as the best in this world. It was just that compared to others, as long as you were inferior, you would lose your chance. Si Wenchen, who was in the middle of a conversation, saw that she had closed the proposal and was no longer looking at it, so he took the opportunity to say to Manager Dai, "How about this? I'll take a closer look at your company's proposal and then give you an answer. Is that okay? Manager Dai appeared rather respectful. Of course, Boss C, then I'll wait for the good news. Next, after watching Manager Dai leave, Si Wenxin looked at Shi Shujing. Seeing that she kept her head down and refused to raise it, he could not help but smile, more or less with a teasing tone. How is it? Now, do you still think that your Blue Sky Group's plan is perfect? She was not in a good mood at all and really did not have much mood to talk to him. Yes, I think too highly of myself. I'm sorry to disturb you and waste your time. I'm really sorry. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Shi Shujing hurriedly stood up to leave. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, she would not even have the last trace of dignity. Looking at her embarrassed appearance, Si Wenxin could not bear to see her escape. You didn't succeed this time, so you're not going to continue next time? Shi Shujing, are you such a person with no confidence? Shi Shujing, who was about to leave, stopped in her tracks. She stood there with her back to him and did not turn around. She was even silent and did not speak. He did not know what she was thinking. Si Wenxin watched quietly and could not guess what she was thinking. Cooperation. This time he was going to give up the cooperation with Blue Sky because the design of the proposal was really unsightly. Chapter 22. However, Si Wenxin hadn't expected her to be such a stubborn person. He had already given her a chance to work with him next time, but she refused and insisted on working with him this time. Shi Shujing turned around calmly and looked at him. Boss C, how long is the final signing date between your company and Hengyo Real Estate? He raised an eyebrow, unable to guess what she was up to. About a month or so. Shi Shujing was more confident. She smiled and exuded confidence. All right, I won't admit defeat until the last moment. All right, I won't admit defeat until the very last moment. You can continue to contact Hengyo Real Estate. At the same time, we will also rework the proposal. I don't want to promise you anything now. In the end, just look at the new proposal. If you still think that Hengyo Real Estate's proposal is better than our Blue Sky Group's, then I have nothing to say. Si Wenxin's eyes suddenly lit up. Let's not talk about whether or not her final plan would be acceptable to him. Just based on her vitality alone, it was more pleasing to see than the lifeless face of a corpse. The corners of the man's mouth curled up as he nodded. Yes, but you should know the rules. You've already seen Hengyo Real Estate's proposal, so the plan you make in the future can't be the same as others. Otherwise, I can veto you based on your character. She nodded with a firm gaze. All right, don't worry. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. With that, she bowed and prepared to leave. Si Wenxin was quite depressed when he saw this. She wasn't in a hurry to leave just now, but now she was in a hurry? However, he didn't want her to leave now. What's the hurry? It's so late. You haven't eaten yet, have you? Sit down and eat together. If there's no car, I can send you back. Things were often like this. When you pounce on them, others don't care, but when you don't, others like to pounce on you. Shi Shujing really didn't have any appetite. She was in a hurry to go back and think of a new plan, so she didn't appreciate Si Wenxin's initiative to keep her. It's okay, I can eat it at home. That's all for now, bye. She turned around and was about to leave again. When Si Wenxin saw this, he was a little unhappy on the spot. His face obviously darkened and he reminded her in a displeased tone. Manager, sure, I have the final authority to sign the contract. You should know this. When it comes to a project, the client looks at the capability, but in fact, it also looks at the mood. Don't tell me you don't understand this? Hearing this, Shi Shujing was stunned. She turned to look at him, but Si Wenxin was too lazy to bother with her. He lowered his head and pretended to eat. She looked at him and felt that he was a little like a child in a fit of pique. After thinking about it, Shi Shujing also felt that what he said made sense. He smiled to himself and walked back. Fine, let's put the plan aside for now. I'd better serve this master first. During the meal, Si Wenxin usually didn't talk much, but for some reason he was the one who took the initiative to start the conversation all night. On the other hand, Shi Shujing was unusually quiet. As they chatted, he didn't know how to talk about this problem. I'm a little curious. Manager sure works so hard. Is it for Blue Sky Group, or for your husband Qin Baiyuan? When he mentioned the word husband, he inexplicably felt that it was very harsh. Hearing this, Shi Shujing, who was eating and drinking with her head lowered, subconsciously raised her head to look at him. Unfortunately, he was still putting on an act, lowering his head to eat, not looking at her at all, as if he was just casually asking. Shi Shujing couldn't understand what he was thinking, so she responded to his personal questions like she usually did to other people. It's not for anyone. It's just a personal professionalism. I do things for money. It's that simple. She didn't know if her answer satisfied him. He finally looked up at her and smiled. Oh, is that so? Then Xiao Qin must be very happy to have such a good wife like you. Perhaps he didn't know the truth, which was why he said that. However, when these words entered Shi Shujing's ears, she felt that they were particularly grating. Qin Baiyuan hated her to the core, and he said she was happy? Chapter 23. However, she wanted to be quiet tonight, but he was especially talkative tonight. She didn't know what was wrong with him, but it was as if he had changed into a different person. Usually he didn't talk so much. Miss Shi, after working with you for this period of time, I've roughly figured out your character. Actually, you're really a very good employee. You're motivated and responsible. Xiao Li from our company's real estate department just resigned some time ago, and we're currently lacking people. I wonder if Miss Shi has any friends that you'd like to recommend? His words were always like this, reserved and reserved. Although he didn't say it explicitly, Shi Shujing could roughly understand what he meant. She looked up at him with a serious face. Thank you, Boss C, but I'm sorry, I don't have any friends, so I can't help you with this. Seeing that she was serious, Si Wenxin didn't know what was going on, but he quietly looked at her and stopped eating. She didn't look away either and looked straight at him. Neither of them had the intention to break the silence first. After looking at each other for a while, he suddenly raised his eyebrows with a hint of displeasure. Because of Qin Baiyuan? It was obvious that he was being reserved just now, but now he was being straightforward. Shi Shujing didn't beat around the bush with him. This is outside of work, right? Boss C is so curious about my private affairs? When he heard that, he sneered on the spot. He didn't explain and lowered his head to eat. Seeing this, Shi Shujing blinked and was silent for a moment. Then she lowered her head to eat too. She didn't understand. She didn't know him well. What use would it have for work if she kept asking about his private affairs? Shi Shujing thought that since the two of them had reached a dead end, he wouldn't ask any more questions. However, she really couldn't see through this man. One moment he was aloof. The next moment he was as annoying as a naggy old woman. What's Manager Shi's major in? Seeing that he still asked, Shi Shujing felt a little speechless. However, she really couldn't find any fault with his indifferent attitude this time, so she couldn't just ignore him. Finance. Thus the two of them chatted on and off. Most of the time he was the one asking and she was the one answering. Shi Shujing just couldn't understand. Was he that kind of person to begin with? When they weren't familiar with each other, they didn't talk at all. Once they were familiar with each other, they would talk about any topic for a long time. She didn't know how long they had chatted. Suddenly, Shi Shujing glanced around and saw a familiar figure from the corner of her eyes. She looked carefully and realized that it was Gao Zhuqing. Shi Shujing was shocked. Inexplicably, she just didn't want others to know about her contact with Si Wenxin, because it was very likely that it would be spread to Qin Baiyuan's ears. According to that man's temperament, even if she and Si Wenxin were clean, Qin Baiyuan would definitely be suspicious. Gao Zhuqing didn't seem to notice her. Shi Shujing hurriedly lowered her head. The man on the other side had already noticed that something was amiss. He looked towards Gao Zhuqing's side and asked with a doubtful expression. Who did you see? Why are you so scared? Is it President Qin? She was dying of anxiety. She looked up at him, hoping that he would be quiet and not speak. She hoped that he wouldn't take the initiative to cause any abnormalities and let Gao Zhuqing notice this side. However, everything wasn't something that Shi Shujing could control alone. Just as she was hoping that Gao Zhuqing would quickly go to the seat far away, she heard Gao Zhuqing's familiar voice not far away. Hey Shujing. Hearing this, Shi Shujing had a feeling that it was over. She turned her head gloomily and saw Gao Zhuqing greeting her friend and then running over alone. Shujing, why are you here? What a coincidence. She put on a bitter face and wanted to say that it wasn't a coincidence at all. She would rather not encounter such a coincidence. However, what Shi Shujing said in the end was this. Are you here to eat with your friend? After Gao Zhuqing ran over, she nodded at Shi Shujing. Yes. Then her gaze fell on Si Wenxin. The man looked indifferent. He looked at Gao Zhuqing without saying a word. He didn't seem to want to take the initiative to greet her. It seemed that he was really very cold to people he was not familiar with. Shi Shujing was a little embarrassed. She didn't know whether she should introduce herself to the two of them, but she felt that it was unnecessary. Chapter 24. Just as she was hesitating, Gao Zhuqing had already taken the initiative to extend his hand to Si Wenxin warmly and generously. "Hello, I'm Xu Jing's friend. My name is Gao Zhuqing." Si Wenxin looked at her hand indifferently. For a moment, he had no intention of extending his hand. This situation made Xu Jing's embarrassment flare up. When she first met Si Wenxin, he was like this too. Only after they got to know each other a little better would he give you some face. Xu Jing was anxious to say something because Gao Zhuqing was her friend after all. Wasn't it a little too much for him to do this? However, what Xu Jing did not expect was that Si Wenxin first glanced at Gao Zhuqing, and then his gaze fell on her face. Seeing that her face was already red, he calmly extended his hand. "Hello, Si Wenxin." Gao Zhuqing was a reporter and often interviewed high-level people. Therefore, she understood the mentality of rich people like to pretend, so she did not care too much about it. After shaking hands, she retracted her gaze and looked at Xu Jing. "Xu Jing, he is..." Xu Jing naturally explained immediately. "He is my client." The two sisters chattered, leaving Si Wenxin alone. He did not seem to care and listened quietly. He lowered his head to eat his food and looked up at the two from time to time. As he spoke, it was unknown whether Gao Zhuqing did it on purpose or not. "Oh, by the way, Xu Jing, why did you call me in the middle of the night? You even cried. I was almost scared to death at that time. I thought you quarreled with that bastard Qin Baiyuan again. I told you to divorce as soon as possible. Anyway, you two don't have children." She was not scared to death, but Xu Jing was scared to death. Xu Jing thought that Gao Zhuqing was crazy. She had already told Gao Zhuqing why she called Gao Zhuqing. Now that Gao Zhuqing deliberately said it, Xu Jing felt that she did it on purpose. However, Xu Jing could not figure out why Gao Zhuqing did this. She quickly covered Gao Zhuqing's mouth, feeling a little angry in her heart. She felt that Gao Zhuqing made her lose face in front of the client. "What's wrong with you?" Si Wenxin did not say a word. He just looked at Xu Jing with a complicated expression. He had already obtained some information that he did not know from Gao Zhuqing's words. It turned out that she would secretly cry for this unhappy marriage? Xu Jing wanted to cover Gao Zhuqing's mouth, but Gao Zhuqing broke free. She was usually a sensible person, but now she suddenly became abnormal. "What are you doing? You're the one who called me. Xu Jing, listen to me. Divorce Qin Baiyuan in 2 days. He's not a good person. Are you dating him now?" As he spoke, Gao Zhuqing suddenly looked at Si Wenxin. No matter what Gao Zhuqing's mentality was, Xu Jing only felt that she was about to go crazy, and she was almost driven crazy. Oh my god, she had no image at all. She still had to continue to contact Ocean Group in the future. Si Wenxin smiled. He looked at Gao Zhuqing and did not say anything. Were the two of them dating? He did not know why, but he suddenly felt that this person named Gao Zhuqing was very likable. In fact, he could more or less see that Gao Zhuqing seemed to be revealing his family's dirty linen, but in fact he was secretly helping Xu Jing. Perhaps Gao Zhuqing thought that he was a good person and wanted to matchmake the two of them. However, Xu Jing did not know whether she had reacted or not. Anyway, she looked very angry and she wanted to chase Gao Zhuqing away like a fly. "Alright, don't talk so much. Your friend is still waiting for you over there. Hurry up and go and accompany her." Seeing that Xu Jing was really the kind of person who was about to fall out, Gao Zhuqing finally did not dare to provoke her. Only then did he curl his lips and compromise. "Alright, then I'm leaving." It was not easy to send Gao Zhuqing, the god of plague, away. Xu Jing secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, when she turned back to look at Si Wenxin, she inexplicably made a bitter face. Now, the ladylike image that she had been maintaining was completely destroyed. She really hated Gao Zhuqing to death. Xu Jing wanted to apologize. Chapter 25. However, the man shook his head and gestured. "It's okay. She has a strong personality. I think she's a little cute." Cute. Seeing that he found such an adjective, Xu Jing really wanted to stare at him. Cute. Forgive me for being blind, but I really can't see how Gao Zhuqing is cute. Thinking that Si Wenxin already knew that her marriage was unfortunate, she was inexplicably worried. At present she was still begging him. After this incident, her status would be even more despicable. Thinking about the future cooperation, Xu Jing was full of confidence before, but now he disappeared again. Xu Jing didn't want to say a word. He lowered his head in silence. Opposite him his voice came. "Actually, your friend's words are very reasonable. You can really consider it." If you are worried that Boss Chin will play tricks on you after the divorce, you can come to our company. I have already said that your ability is not bad. I admire you very much. Her eyes moved and she subconsciously raised her head to look at him. However, opposite him, Si Wenchen looked indifferent. Shi Shujing didn't see any other expression on him except this one. It was as if he was born with facial paralysis. Although he had good intentions, Shi Shujing didn't want to accept it. She took the bag and wanted to pay the bill. It's very late. I've disturbed Boss C tonight. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. As for the plan, please be a little more careful, Boss C, and give our blue sky a chance. Even though her mood was affected by the trivial family matters, Si Wenchen found that she really talked about work. Seeing that she wanted to pay the bill, the man's face darkened. This time he really didn't hide it. What are you doing? Do you want to break my Si Wenchen's rule? I never let a woman treat me to a meal. Shi Shujing, if you pay it will really hurt my self-esteem. He said so very seriously that Shi Shujing was shocked. In particular, he had already called him by his full name. In the past he had always called him Manager Shi, so Shi Shujing did not dare to move. He was already paying for it. Seeing this, she could only politely say something. Then I'll have to trouble Director C to spend some money. In fact, tonight's meal cost a lot. It was for 2 people plus Manager Dai who came halfway. It was not a small amount, but it was enough to make Shi Shujing's heart ache a little. Before she left, she turned to look in Gao Zhuqing's direction. She still did not dare to go over and greet that weirdo. Who knew if Gao Zhuqing would act up again and spout nonsense? She didn't dare to bet on it. It was already embarrassing enough. Shi Shujing stopped in front of his car and turned to look at him. I know Boss C wants to be a gentleman again, but there's really no need for that. It's not too late now and this area is not remote, so you don't have to worry. I can go back by myself this time. The man raised his eyebrows. Since she had already said so, he couldn't force her any more. Looking at the short Shi Shujing who only reached his shoulder, Si Wenchen was silent for a moment and suddenly reached out his hand. On the other side, Shi Shujing was shocked. He immediately turned his head and stepped back. What are you doing? She was still so sensitive. She couldn't even touch him. She was super defensive. Si Wenchen sighed in his heart. He simply retracted his hand and put it in his trouser pocket. He looked at her with a smile, looking like he was joking. Nothing. I just want to see what you look like without your glasses. Shi Shujing was stunned by his words. She suddenly didn't know how to answer, so she looked at him silently. The man shrugged and turned to open the car door. When she saw this, she immediately spoke again. Boss C, don't forget our agreement. Please give Blue Sky Group a chance. Si Wenchen really admired her. Really, she didn't care so much about other things. When it came to work, she could immediately get excited as if she had been injected with a stimulant. However, he was not interested in work at all, so the man didn't want to talk to her and didn't even reply. Shi Shujing stood there and watched his car drive away. Chapter 26. On the way back in the taxi, Gao Zhuqing's phone rang. Seeing this, Shi Shujing naturally picked it up. It just so happened that she had something to say to that weirdo. Before she could open her mouth, Gao Zhuqing was already shouting over there, and her voice was very loud. Shujing, why didn't you say hello to me when you went back? I saw you walking out with that man just now. Really you? As she listened, she abruptly interrupted him. Didn't you embarrass yourself enough just now? If I went over to say hello to you, you might do something crazy and scare him. Gao Zhuqing did not know if his brain could not wrap around it or what. How could he be scared by a nobody like me? You're thinking too much. At the side, Shi Shujing still felt inexplicably angry when she thought of what had happened just now. He didn't, but I was scared by you. How could you expose my dirty deeds in front of a stranger? Did you deliberately embarrass me? Knowing that Shi Shujing had misunderstood and that the idiot could not see through his good intentions, Gao Zhuqing became anxious. I did it on purpose, but I didn't want to embarrass you. I wanted to matchmake the two of you. I felt that there was something fishy about the way he looked at you. Maybe he would not take action because you're already married. That would be such a pity. That's why I said that to dispel his concerns. Hearing this, Shi Shujing was speechless, but silently she was touched. Although she was touched, Shi Shujing was such a stubborn person. You're crazy. Gao Zhuqing did not know that Shi Shujing was stubborn, so he thought that she was still angry with him, so he quickly explained. I'm doing it for your own good. Oh yes, since you're so familiar with him, do me a favor and let him accept my interview. Unexpectedly, Shi Shujing rejected him directly. No way. Tonight, Blue Sky's proposal was severely attacked by another company. I can't lift my head in front of him anymore. How can I ask him for help again? However, both of them had different thoughts. Gao Zhuqing simply ignored Shi Shujing's dilemma. That's because Blue Sky is not as good as him. It has nothing to do with the interview. Believe me, he really is interested in you. As long as you ask, he will definitely agree to the interview. Shi Shujing felt a headache coming on. He sounded helpless. Gao Zhuqing, I really want to help you, but this is not something I can decide. Can you not make things difficult for me? After a moment of silence, the other party suddenly became serious. I don't want to make things difficult for you, but this is very important to my future. Think about it again. With that, he hung up the phone. Shi Shujing frowned. She could hear the seriousness in Gao Zhuqing's words. He didn't sound like he was joking at all. She only felt annoyed. Gao Zhuqing had helped her countless times. Therefore, if she refused now that someone was begging her, it would seem that she, Shi Shujing, was not a human being. However, if she had to beg Si Wenshin for this matter, Shi Shujing felt that her self-esteem would be stepped on. For a moment she didn't know what to do. Looking at the proposal in her arms, Shi Shujing wanted to throw it out. She didn't want to go home now, so she went to the hospital. When she arrived at the hospital after 9 o'clock, the doctor was still there. Shi Shujing asked about Shi Qindian's condition. When she walked into the ward, Shi Qindian was still lying on the bed, relying on an infusion to keep him alive. She came to the bedside and carefully pulled the quilt for him. Looking at Shi Qindian's haggard face, she felt bad. Before she was 10, she and her mother, Yan Zizhuang, depended on each other. Later, she was taken home by Shi Qindian. It was also the first time she knew who her father was. At first, she couldn't accept him because he abandoned her and her mother. However, Shi Qindian treated her too well, even more than he treated Stony Moon. Gradually, she was moved and accepted him. Chapter 27. Less than half a year after Shi Qindian became a vegetable, Shi Shumi and Stony Moon saw him as a burden and did not want to take care of him anymore. However, they did not want Yan Zizhuang to bring him home, so they sent him to the hospital. Shi Shujing tried to persuade him many times, but to no avail. She did not want her father to be left alone in the hospital. Holding his old hand and placing it on her face, Shi Shujing's eyes were filled with tears. "Dad, wake up please." However, no one answered. "You will definitely wake up. I believe that you will not abandon us like this, Dad." Hearing the footsteps, Shi Shujing quickly wiped away her tears and looked up. Tao Yichin was standing at the door. He was a gentle and handsome man wearing a pair of business glasses. He was gentle and calm, elegant and handsome. He gave people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze, making them feel at ease. "Brother-in-law." Shi Shujing stood up. Tao Yichin smiled warmly and good-looking. "Why are you here?" She answered. "I just got off work, so I came to see Dad." Tao Yichin walked closer. Shi Shujing smelled the alcohol on him and asked, "You drank?" The man nodded calmly. "I just finished a dinner." Shi Shujing felt that Tao Yichin did not have it easy. He was Shi Qindian's most capable assistant. After Shuilan went bankrupt, he married Stony Moon and took over the company. At that time, everyone thought that Shuilan was finished. He had been holding on and turning the situation around bit by bit. Although Shuilan was not as big as it used to be, its development had exceeded everyone's expectations. In the past 8 years only he knew how hard it had been. He never said it, but Shi Shujing knew it in his heart. Moreover, he was a man who valued relationships. Even Stony Moon and her daughter had abandoned Shi Qindian. He was the only one who would come to visit Shi Qindian. He had been handling the matters in the hospital. Shi Shujing pondered for a moment and said, "If there's a chance, you should talk to my sister. My mother wants to bring Dad home. She is worried about him in the hospital. It's better to let someone take care of him." The man nodded. "All right, I'll talk to her." After that, the two of them sat in the ward for a while before leaving the hospital together. Shi Shujing saw that he was drunk and it was not safe to drive, so she suggested that she drive. Tao Yichin agreed. The luxury car drove steadily. Shi Shujing usually drove very slowly. Turning his head, he saw that Tao Yichin seemed to be very drunk. His cheeks were red, so he opened the window to let in some wind. Outside the window, the neon lights flashed and the bright lights shone on Tao Yichin's face. His skin was fair and his hair was messed up by the night wind. He looked clean and fresh. His facial features were somewhat scholarly and elegant, but Shi Shujing knew that his gentleness was only shown to his family. In the business world he was a man of extraordinary means. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to bring Shuelan back from the dead. She had admired his ability since she was a child. How should I put it? He was the kind of man who had a tiger in his heart and sniffed roses. He was gentle and kind, but he was quite smart and bold. She was a little worried about him and asked, "Do you feel uncomfortable? There's a pharmacy up ahead. Do you want to buy some hangover medicine?" However, Tao Yichin shook his head slightly. "No, that little bit of wine can't make me drunk. How have you been? Busy with work?" Seeing that he was asking about himself, Shi Shujing replied politely. "Same as usual, 9 to 5. What about you?" "Same as you." Tao Yichin narrowed his eyes and looked at Shi Shujing, who was dressed in a formal suit. His heart ached a little. She was very strong now and could take care of herself. She didn't need him to worry about her work, but she had been pretending to be weak. When he first met her, she was only 13 years old and he was 19 years old. He was a little autistic. She took the initiative to talk to him like a ray of sunshine, warming his heart. At that time she was naive and romantic. He swore to protect her innocence and not let the cruelty of reality hurt her. In the end he broke his promise just like he had promised to marry her. When he was young he always thought that as long as he worked hard, he would be able to get what he wanted. Unfortunately, fate made fools of people, and things often went against one's wishes. She didn't become his bride, but he became her brother-in-law. This was the reason why Tao Yichin had been unhappy for so many years. That marriage was fated at a glance, but he loved her for a whole 11 years until now. Chapter 28. Tao Yichin glanced at the folder and asked, "You took over the Ocean Group project?" She nodded calmly. "Yes." Thinking of the Ocean Group, Tao Yichin was more or less worried that she would be obstructed. "This project is very difficult. Do you need my help?" Shi Shujing gave him a reassuring smile. "No, I've already contacted the people there. Don't worry, I'm no longer the little girl from back then. I can handle it myself." Seeing this he had to give up. "Okay. If you need any help just call me." Knowing that he was concerned about him, Shi Shujing was more or less aware of the fact that he was his brother-in-law. "Thank you, brother-in-law. I know you have to socialize a lot with your work, but try not to drink too much. It's not good for your health." The word brother-in-law made Tao Yichin feel uncomfortable. He smiled bitterly and teasingly. "People have no choice in the world. Just get used to it, but you take good care of yourself. Don't be wronged." Shi Shujing nodded. "I know." At the entrance of the Shi family's villa, Shi Shujing stopped the car. Tao Yichin unbuckled his seat belt and asked, "Do you want to come in?" She shook her head. "Maybe next time. It's already very late and there's a meeting tomorrow morning." Most importantly, she did not want Stony Moon to see her with Tao Yichin. She did not want him to be suspicious even though there was nothing between them. "Okay." Tao Yichin did not force her. He got out of the car and watched her leave in another taxi before going in. As soon as he entered the house, Stony Moon walked over with his arms crossed and a frown on his face. "Where did you go tonight?" With a calm expression, he walked to the side, untying his tie as he walked. "To have dinner with Mr. Zhang." Unexpectedly, when Stony Moon heard this, he immediately flew into a rage. "Liar. You were with Shi Shujing. I saw her get out of your car." Tao Yichin's head hurt. He tore off his tie and threw it on the sofa next to him, explaining patiently. "I went to the hospital to see Dad. She was there too." However, life was like this. Other married women would not believe such excuses, and neither would Stony Moon. How could there be such a coincidence? Besides, why are you going to the hospital so late at night? You knew she would go there, so you went looking for her? Stony Moon's aggressiveness made Tao Yichin very uncomfortable. He felt that her voice was sharp and ear-piercing, which made his head hurt even more. He sighed helplessly. "No. I don't believe it." Stony Moon's eyes were ablaze. "Don't tell me you're still thinking about her?" "Tao Yichin, get this straight. We're already married. I'm your wife. Shi Shujing is also married." "I know." When Tao Yichin sat down on the sofa, he suddenly yelled at her. Perhaps he was extremely annoyed by her. Then he said coldly, "You're overthinking it." Although he tried to control his emotions, the previous yell still betrayed him. When Stony Moon saw it, she almost knew what he was thinking. "You know very well whether I'm overthinking it or not. Anyway, keep your distance from her." If I catch you meeting in private again, don't blame me for falling out. After warning him, Stony Moon slammed the door and went out. There was a loud bang and the whole house shook. Tao Yichin felt annoyed by her strong temper. He knew that Stony Moon liked him a little, but for so many years she had always regarded him as a subordinate of the Shi Shujing family. She was bossy and often threw a tantrum. She was especially sensitive when it came to matters related to Shi Shujing. She would make a scene at the slightest sign of trouble. The two of them had been married for 7 years. His tolerance had made her more fearless. A marriage that wasn't based on love was in danger. If she wasn't Shi Jiyue, he would have divorced her a long time ago. Shi Shujing. Tao Yichin murmured her name and imagined her smile. Only then could he feel some relief in his heart. This might be the spiritual food that he had been persevering until now. On the other side, when Qin Baiyuan returned home, his mother, Yin Jingqi, was waiting for him in the living room. Seeing that he was drunk and his eyes were red, Yin Jingqi was a little unhappy, but she still asked the servant to make ginseng tea. Chapter 29. The man did not take it seriously. He put his legs on the coffee table, and his handsome face was full of carelessness. Why did you call me back so late? Look at it yourself. Yin Jingqi handed him the iPad, which was full of photos of Shi Shujing and another man. The man was whispering in her ear intimately. Qin Baiyuan's eyes stung and he cursed out loud. That woman is really daring. Beside him, Yin Jingqi sneered. Of course she dares. Why wouldn't she dare? Otherwise, how do you think she can negotiate those difficult projects? If it were not for the fact that it was in front of him, Qin Baiyuan would not have believed it. Although Shi Shujing had done something wrong to him, it was all before they got married. They had been married for 3 years and she had been behaving herself. He did not expect that she would say one thing in front of others and another behind her back. Just as he was thinking about this indignantly, Yin Jingqi added fuel to the fire. Let me tell you, this kind of woman who looks noble is the dirtiest. You'd better stay away from her or I'm afraid you'll get sick. Qin Baiyuan was full of indignation. Send it to Dad and expose her true colors. However, Yin Jingqi was not in a hurry at this moment. The cooperation has not been reached yet. What's the hurry? Besides, the evidence is not enough. She will definitely quibble. Let's not do anything first so as not to alert her. Qin Baiyuan gritted his teeth. But how do you expect me to face her? I'm afraid that I will strangle that damn woman. This kind of thing would happen again. It was definitely not the first time she had done it. Thinking of how many times she had accused him before, Qin Baiyuan could not help but be angry. Yin Jingqi, on the other hand, still looked calm and indifferent. Don't be angry. When she wins the project and has enough evidence, we will kick her out. Before that, you must keep calm and don't expose yourself. Qin Baiyuan was not reconciled, and his eyes were red with anger. Shi Shujing deserved it for fooling around with women outside. It was one thing that he didn't love her, but it didn't mean that that damn woman could unscrupulously accuse him behind his back. Yin Jingqi patted Qin Baiyuan's shoulder to comfort him. I know you're not happy, but you've already endured it for 3 years. A little while longer won't matter. Mom promises you that she'll be kicked out of this house in a month at most. When Shi Shujing returned home, Yin Jingqi was sitting in the living room. Mom. Yin Jingqi raised her voice and asked. You're back from the ocean group? How did it go? She stood still and looked at Yin Jingqi. He's very dissatisfied with our proposal. Yin Jingqi's face turned green. Is he dissatisfied with the plan or is he dissatisfied with you? Don't shirk your responsibility. Upon hearing this, Shi Shujing was baffled. He didn't know why Yin Jingqi would vent her anger on him. It wasn't me. The problem now is very tricky. I will explain it in detail in tomorrow's meeting. He didn't expect that Yin Jingqi would not let go. What problem? She didn't want to say more. I'm tired. Let's talk about it in tomorrow's meeting. Shi Shujing really didn't have the energy to argue with her. She didn't care whether Yin Jingqi was happy or not and went straight upstairs. After entering the room, she put the file aside and threw herself on the sofa. She closed her eyes and her mind was full of how to rush the plan. She thought about it so much that her head was about to explode. After resting for a few minutes, Shi Shujing took her pajamas and walked into the bathroom with a heavy heart. Unexpectedly, Qin Baiyuan was inside. She was so scared that she screamed and hurriedly ran out of the bathroom. Qin Baiyuan then came out, tied a bath towel around his waist, and his beautiful eyebrows were knitted tightly. Why are you screaming like a ghost? She turned her back and covered her eyes, not daring to look. Why are you at home? You're not dressed. Shi Shujing's face was as red as blood, and the tips of her ears were hot. The shock was too strong when she closed her eyes and saw his healthy body. Hearing this, Qin Baiyuan snorted coldly and retorted rudely. You showered and dressed? My coat is on the sofa. How could you not know that I'm at home? Pretentious. Shi Shujing's mind was full of work just now. How could she notice that? With her back facing him, she adjusted her emotions with a red face. Chapter 30. Qin Baiyuan's lips curled into a mocking sneer. Your acting skills are really good. People who don't know will think that you are very pure. Shi Shujing thought that it was not appropriate to emphasize this kind of thing. Anyway, he had put so many sinners on her, so it was not a big deal. She calmed herself down and turned around. Qin Baiyuan was drying his hair. The last time she saw him with a bath towel was on the day of their wedding. He stayed at home that night, but they slept in separate rooms. Thinking of this, she could not help but ask, why did you come back? As soon as Qin Baiyuan saw Shi Shujing's face, he thought of those photos and was annoyed. It's none of your business. Do I need your permission to go back to my own home? You really think so highly of yourself. He had to admit that this woman's acting skills were quite superb, and she hid it very well. She even hid it from him. He thought that she would behave herself after marriage. But would a woman who behaved herself be taken intimate photos? The two of them talked face to face and she smiled shamelessly. She used this trick to deal with those male clients, which really made him feel sick. Shi Shujing did not know what Qin Baiyuan was thinking. Anyway, for the past 3 years, no matter what she said or did, Qin Baiyuan had the same attitude. She only felt physically and mentally exhausted. Stay at home tonight? He looked disgusted. Is it possible? Will I stay here facing you? Don't disgust me. Shi Shujing sighed, feeling a little helpless and speechless. Qin Baiyuan. After all, we are husband and wife. There is no need to be hostile every time we meet. It is very tiring. Her tone was more or less asking for peace, but Qin Baiyuan did not buy it. On the contrary, he thought that she was acting and felt even more disgusted. What? Did you do something shameful that you feel sorry for me, so you took the initiative to ask for peace? However, she did not understand why. I did not. It's just that this bad relationship has lasted for 3 years. I don't believe that you are not tired. Qin Baiyuan did not have a good attitude. As long as you continue to pester me, this situation will never change. Shi Shujing, you're the one who destroyed me. What right do you have to act like a victim? She was startled. When I married you, I never thought that the situation would be so bad. Shi Shujing admitted that it was her fault to marry him wishfully, but that was only her wish. She did not expect that Qin Yuning would take extreme measures to force Qin Baiyuan. At first, she had always held on to the hope that her love would slowly melt his heart and make him accept her. However, the truth was that he rarely came home for a year. She couldn't find a chance to ease the tension between the two of them. His dealings with those women outside had broken her heart. If this was his revenge, then he had done it. You didn't know back then, but now that you know, why are you still pestering me? Shi Shujing wanted to say that it was because she loved him so much that she was unwilling to give up. She loved him so much that she was still unwilling to let him go. It was probably the most disgusting thing he could say. She did not want to humiliate herself again. Her silence angered Qin Baiyuan even more. Let me tell you, paper can't wrap fire. Soon, I will tear apart your mask and let my father know what a despicable woman you are. Moreover, I will make you pay a painful price for what you have done. That night, Qin Baiyuan still left. Shi Shujing had nightmares all night and didn't sleep well. The next day, she still forced herself to go to work. The meeting room for more than 100 people was filled to the brim. Shi Shujing was used to arriving early. Seeing Qin Baiyuan and Su Jixin walking in, talking and laughing, her heart felt as if it had been pierced by thousands of fine needles. During this time, there was no lack of ugly employees who were looking at each other, gloating over their misfortune. However, she could only pretend to be calm and calmly shift her gaze elsewhere. Even though there was a distance between them, it was as if she couldn't get rid of the laughter of the two of them. It kept echoing in her mind. Yin Jingqi's position in the company was second only to Qin Yuning. When he was on a business trip, she was temporarily in charge of the company. After each department made a routine report, Yin Jingqi's gaze fell on Shi Shujing's face. Chapter 31. She calmly nodded at Yin Jingqi. I've already gotten in touch with the boss C of Ocean Group and showed him our proposal, including the new one that was revised overnight. However, he vetoed it because our proposal was too bad. The faces of the directors of the design department darkened. Shi Shujing looked on expressionlessly and continued. My thoughts are the same as yours. At first, I thought that the other party did not respect the fruits of our labor. However, this view completely changed after seeing the proposal of Hangyo Real Estate. To be honest, I felt very embarrassed at that time because our proposal was so much worse than Hangyo's. Hangyo isn't the strongest in the real estate industry yet, but there was such a big gap. No wonder the other party threw it back after only a few pages. In Jingqi asked after listening. Then what's your good suggestion? Everyone's eyes fell on Shi Shujing. The eyes of the directors of the design department opposite her were especially sharp. Shi Shujing's expression did not change. I think it's not wrong for some old employees to seek a stable salary after staying in the same company for a long time. However, business is competitive. Once a person has a lazy attitude, then they are completely useless to the company. In my personal opinion, the design department should undergo a major reform. Fire the employees who have not made outstanding contributions to the company recently and hire new experienced and creative designers. Some people were unhappy when they heard that. Perhaps they were afraid that they would be implicated. What a joke. Our design department is full of elites. How can we fire them just because you say so? That's right. That's a fantasy. I think you're the one who didn't do a good job. Don't put the blame on our design department. There's nothing wrong with our design. All kinds of discussions and dissatisfaction were heard. In fact, when Shi Shujing said those words, she had already expected this situation. In the end, it was In Jingqi who stopped the argument. Manager Shi, can you guarantee that everything you said is the truth? She looked at her mother-in-law calmly. For a moment, she did not know which side her mother-in-law was on. Yes. Shi Shujing had thought that based on her unfriendly relationship with her mother-in-law, she would definitely side with someone else to overrule her. Therefore, when her mother-in-law took her side, she was really surprised. That's good. I can agree with you. The whole audience was in an uproar. They couldn't believe that In Jingqi would adopt such an absurd idea. Previously, she insisted on opposing whatever Shi Shujing said or did. Why did her attitude suddenly change 180 degrees? Qin Baiyuan also frowned in surprise. But, under everyone's astonished gazes, In Jingqi continued. If I accept your suggestion and you fail to complete the mission, how will you explain it to everyone? At the side, Shi Shujing was stunned. Her mother-in-law's words seemed to be tactful, but every word was forceful. How could she explain it? Now, even Shi Shujing didn't know how to explain it. Who would dare to guarantee something that they didn't know? Even those big shots standing at the top of the pyramid could cause devastating bankruptcy due to decision-making problems, not to mention that Shi Shujing was just a nobody. Just when Shi Shujing was secretly thinking about how to give her mother-in-law a satisfactory answer, her mother-in-law had already made the decision for her. Manager Shi, the dismissal of people can be a big or small matter. I only agreed to it because I trust your ability. So, if in the end we dismiss the lazy employees according to your request, and you can't give us a satisfactory explanation, then you should set an example and leave our blue sky. As soon as these words came out, there was a sudden silence. Although the position Shi Shujing held was not a big one, it was not a small one either. She had worked hard for many years to climb up to this position. Only she knew how it felt. Chapter 32. Now that things had come to this point, Shi Shujing could neither advance nor retreat. She could only follow the trend and agree to her mother-in-law's request. Okay. If I can't give you a satisfactory explanation in the end, I am willing to set an example and resign from my position as the manager. No one in the room said anything. If Shi Shujing had asked for someone else to be fired and she was not willing to guarantee anything, then everyone would have blamed her. However, now that she had set an example, no one could find any fault with her. After the meeting, Shi Shujing received a call from Gao Zhuqing when she returned to the office. It was about an interview with Si Wenqin. They had been good friends for many years and were as close as sisters. Gao Zhuqing had always helped Shi Shujing. On the contrary, Gao Zhuqing rarely asked Shi Shujing for help. Therefore, it was really hard for Shi Shujing to refuse this time. Gao Zhuqing said on the phone that the magazine would have an internal staff transfer this week. If she got the interview, she could be in charge of the financial news. If not, she would be fired by the magazine and lose her job. When Shi Shujing heard this, she felt very upset. Just a moment ago she had asked the higher-ups of her company to lay off some lazy employees. On the other side, Gao Zhuqing had encountered a work accident. She felt that God was playing a joke on her. There were some things in society that were hard to explain. For some people you would think that they were well-behaved but they had suffered time and time again. For some people you would think that they were just eating and waiting to die. They had a cheap mouth and loved to talk about other people's flaws, but they were still doing so well. Some people were well-behaved and knew how to behave but they were just average. There were also some people who toyed with women and did all kinds of immoral things, but they never went to jail. So, in this society who could really say for sure? Now Shi Shujing just looked at things from her own point of view. Gao Zhuqing had no background and he didn't want to please his boss. Third, he would never sell his body. So, after working hard for several years, he could only face the situation of losing his job. After hesitating for a while, Shi Shujing couldn't bear to see her friend in trouble, so she agreed. Okay. I'll talk to him but I may not succeed. Don't have too much hope. She was just telling the truth. At about noon she estimated that Si Wenxin would get off work, so she dared to call him. At this time Shi Shujing clenched her phone and held her breath, because she was nervous. The phone rang twice and was hung up. Shi Shujing was panicked. Did Si Wenxin not want to answer her phone? She was so nervous that her hands could not stop shivering. She was afraid that her repeated pestering would annoy the other party. About 5 minutes later Si Wenxin actually called back. Shi Shujing took a few deep breaths before picking up the phone. Her voice was a little shaky. Hello? Boss Si, I'm Shi Shujing. The man's tone was indifferent. I was in a meeting just now. His explanation made her feel a lot more at ease. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She was really upset just now. She thought that he was tired of her and did not want to answer her phone at all. Sorry? I didn't disturb you, did I? Si Wenxin shook his head lightly. No. What's the matter? His voice was low and magnetic. It was so clear as if he was right next to her ear. It tickled Shi Shujing's ears and made her throat dry. I have a favor to ask of you. It has nothing to do with the project. It's my friend. Unexpectedly, before she could finish, Si Wenxin interrupted her. She didn't know if it was because he was not interested or what. I'm very busy now. When Shi Shujing heard this, her heart felt stifled. Every time she came into contact with him, she would be especially nervous because she could not see through him. However, the last few times they met, she felt that he was not a difficult person to get along with. Thinking of Gao Zhuqing saying that he was interested in her, in order to help Gao Zhuqing keep his job, Shi Shujing secretly hesitated and couldn't help but use her honey trap. Are you free to have dinner together? Chapter 33. She didn't know if the honey trap had worked, but Si Wenxin obviously agreed. The meeting will last at least until 10 o'clock in the evening. How about I ask the secretary to pick you up after the meeting? This time Shi Shujing suddenly panicked. Will it be too late? Tomorrow is fine. She wanted to use the honey trap, but she didn't want to give herself to him. And she felt that his words were more or less hinting. However, when the man saw that she refused, he was decisive and resolute. I'll fly to England at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and come back in a week. Boy. But Gao Zhuqing couldn't wait for a week. Although Shi Shujing was a little worried and hesitant, she still hoped that nothing would happen. She just needed to be smart and run away when the situation was not right. Okay. I'll wait for your call. So she agreed to his request. So that Shi Shujing was restless during the working hours. She was a little afraid and worried about the unknown things that were beyond her control. After work, Shi Shujing didn't go home but stayed in the company to work overtime. It wasn't until 11 o'clock in the evening that she finally received a call from Si Wenxin's secretary, who said that he was waiting for her downstairs. In fact, she already wanted to curse. Now it was not a matter of whether it was too late, but it was really too late. They had agreed to meet at 10 o'clock, but now it was an hour late. If she was an hour late during the day it would be fine. But now it was already late at night. An hour late was actually a problem. It began to rain at 9 o'clock. At this moment the rain was pouring heavily, and the lightning and thunder were very frightening. She also thought about giving up in this kind of weather. However, Si Wenxin had already said that he would fly to England tomorrow and would not be back until a week later. If she gave up, it was equivalent to giving up Gao Zhuqing. Therefore Shi Shujing was forced to do nothing. Just walking a few meters out of the company to the car, Shi Shujing was wet. The secretary handed her a towel and Shi Shujing thanked her politely. Thank you. In the car, the wipers were swinging left and right, but it was too dark and the rain was too heavy, so the secretary drove very slowly. Shi Shujing wiped her hair and looked around, puzzled. This is not the way to Ocean Group, is it? The secretary looked calm. Yes. I'll take you to Boss C's house now. Upon hearing this, Shi Shujing's eyes widened in shock. Go to his house? What? However, the secretary's expression did not change because of her surprise. She was still so calm. After the meeting, Director C went home. She smiled sheepishly, feeling somewhat awkward. But it's so late now. Would it be inconvenient? The secretary smiled meaningfully. Somehow she felt that there was more to his words. What are you worried about? Don, she said. You don up. This time Shi Shujing was embarrassed and instantly speechless. From the secretary's tone, did she think that the relationship between them was not ordinary? Shi Shujing was speechless. Judging from the secretary's tone, she thought they had a special relationship. But it was reasonable. Who would talk about a project at home so late at night? At that moment, Shi Shujing wanted to clarify, but she felt that it was not necessary because the secretary did not say it clearly. If she was in a hurry to explain, it would seem that the more she tried to cover it up, the more it would seem like she was burying her head in the sand. At that moment, Shi Shujing wanted to clarify, but she didn't think it was necessary. Because the secretary didn't say it clearly. If she explained it in a hurry, it would seem that the more she tried to cover it up, the more it would seem. After a moment of silence, the secretary took the initiative to chat. After a moment of silence, the secretary took the initiative to talk. Manager Shi and Boss C are old acquaintances? She shook her head. No, we didn't know each other before. The secretary was curious. That's strange. Our Boss C has always been a man of his word, but he made an exception to look at Blue Sky's proposal and invited you to his house so late at night. I thought you had a good relationship. The so-called good relationship probably referred to that kind of relationship. To be honest, the secretary's tone was a little jealous. Shi Shujing didn't like it, so she replied casually. Boss C and I are just partners. The secretary said, oh, with a meaningful look on her face as if saying, keep pretending. Chapter 34. In fact, Shi Shujing couldn't understand the mentality of these people. If they were jealous of you, you could do it yourself. It was as if Shi Shujing was blocking you from doing it. The problem was that others wouldn't be interested in such a kind of person. In real life, Shi Shujing had met many jealous people like the secretary. She felt that these people were very strange and couldn't understand why they were jealous of her. Although the secretary's words were jealous, she still told them politely when they stopped the car. Boss C lives on the top floor. Shi Shujing nodded calmly and couldn't be bothered to care about the previous unpleasantness. Okay. Which room? The secretary smiled. There is only one suite for Boss C on that floor. I see. Thank you. Shi Shujing got out of the car and trotted into the building. She was wet again and looked a little embarrassed. After entering the elevator, she tidied up her hair and clothes in front of the mirror, took off her glasses and patted her pale face to encourage herself. Gao Zhuqing had helped her so many times. This time she had to help her friend get the interview. If there was a chance they could talk about the project again. When she rang the doorbell, Shi Shujing held her breath subconsciously and her heart was beating fast. The door opened quickly. Si Wenchen had just taken a shower and his hair was still wet. He had a bathrobe draped over his body, revealing his muscular chest and tight boxers. His slender legs were completely exposed. She was stunned in an instant. Shi Shujing really couldn't understand. It was fine that he asked her to stay at home, but why was this man always so unself-conscious? Where did he get the confidence to act as if she was very familiar with him? Please, we are not familiar with each other. Can you put on your clothes before opening the door? Si Wenchen looked at her up and down, then turned and walked in. Go take a hot bath first. Shi Shujing was scared and her face turned pale. Bath? What did he want to do? At this time she didn't want to think about it, but she had to. The man did not hear the movement behind him, so he turned around and saw that she was still standing at the door, not daring to enter. He raised his eyebrows, his expression cold and stern. You're soaking wet. I'm afraid you'll catch a cold. Only then did Shi Shujing remember that she was drenched in the rain. The weather was cold and her wet and sticky clothes were very uncomfortable. She was so cold that she shivered. However, women were very sensitive in this aspect. Even though this reason sounded reasonable, it was not enough for her to let down her guard and bathe in a strange man's house. She shook her head. There's no need. I only have a few words to say. I'll leave once I'm done. The expression on the man's face clearly showed a hint of displeasure at that moment. Manager sure came to my house at 11 o'clock and even braved the heavy rain. Is he afraid of wasting time for a shower? Do you think I'm the bad guy? But you don't seem like a good person either, do you? Sure Shujing only thought in his heart, not daring to say it out loud. You've misunderstood. It's really not necessary. I'm in a hurry to go home. He just wouldn't let her. His attitude was firm. She couldn't persuade him at all. But I'm not interested in talking business with a drowned chicken. If you do this, I'll be distracted. Sure Shujing looked down and saw that her white shirt was soaked. Even though she wore a singlet to prevent herself from being exposed, the color of her bra was still faintly discernible through the singlet. Her face suddenly turned red and she froze there awkwardly. Seeing that she finally understood what he meant, Si Wenshin hooked his lips. Go take a bath. Sure Shujing's face was burning. It was better to change clothes than to wear a see-through shirt. She had to nod her head. Sorry to trouble you. The man's mood was obviously better. No trouble. He went into the bedroom and took out a shirt. I don't have women's clothes at home. You wear mine first. Good. Sure Shujing took it. She knew that his family didn't have women's clothes, so she wouldn't force anything on this point. Moreover, the shirt was similar for men and women, and it wouldn't be as different as other clothes. The shirt felt very good. There was no label, but it was more expensive than those big brands. It was a private custom-made one. Chapter 35. The bathroom was huge and magnificent, with a shiny marble floor. There was a huge bathtub and the white porcelain rim was plated with a layer of gold, shining brightly. Looking in the mirror, Sure Shujing found that she was in a worse state than she had imagined. The rain splashed on her face and her hair was wet, looking greasy. Her glasses were stained with water droplets, and the more she looked, the uglier she looked. No wonder Si Wenshin said that he was not interested in talking business with a drowned rat. She was like an invincible ugly woman, and anyone who saw her would feel disgusted. At this moment she was in a state of contradiction, and her mind was in a fierce struggle. On one hand, she did not think that Si Wenshin was a bad person who would take advantage of her. After all, he had shown her gentlemanly respect so far. On the other hand, business should be discussed in the company, and calling her home in the middle of the night would inevitably cause her to have wild thoughts. Sure Shujing shook his head and chased away the bad thoughts in his mind. Remember, don't be troubled by things that did not happen. Different situations call for different actions. Anyway, if she was not willing, he could not force himself on her, right? To be able to stand in such a high position, was there a need to break the law for a woman who was not outstanding? It had been a hard day at work, and Sure Shujing wanted to take a bath to soothe her tired muscles and bones. However, time was tight and she could only take a quick shower. She put on the 2 underwear again and put the uniform on the dryer. She estimated that the clothes should be dry after the talk. Even if they were not dry, she could not go home wearing a man's shirt, and it would be terrible if her mother-in-law saw it. Sure Shujing looked at herself in the mirror seriously, and comforted herself that it would be fine, it must be fine. Walking out of the bathroom and into the hall, Si Wenshin had just taken a bottle of red wine and 2 goblets from the bar counter. He looked at her from afar, and his gaze was very casual, as if he did not want to give her any pressure. However, he could see clearly that the loose shirt wrapped around her slender figure, and it was this oversized size that made her look even more delicate. He retracted his gaze and said calmly, "We don't have much stock at home. 82 Lafite, is that okay? Want a drink?" This was not a good sign. The two of them were not in that kind of relationship, but after working for 2 years, Sure Shujing knew that if a woman and a man were to discuss business, it was best not to drink alcohol and keep a clear head at all times. Men could do anything when they were drunk. Just like the last time when she was drunk, President Wang almost took advantage of her. She could not let the tragedy happen again. Sure Shujing walked over and purposely picked the sofa that was the furthest away from him. "I don't like drinking." Si Wenshin sat on the sofa in a relaxed manner. He held a goblet in one hand and casually stretched the other on the back of the sofa. His long legs were elegantly crossed, and his posture was quite comfortable. No matter how one looked at it, it was pleasing to the eye. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared. It was raining cats and dogs. The raindrops were like whips lashing at the floor-to-ceiling windows. They were also lashing at Sure Shujing's heart. Si Wenchen didn't know if it was because she couldn't open her mouth to ask for help, but seeing that she didn't move, he couldn't help but take the initiative to ask. What's the matter? Shi Shujing encouraged himself, but his head was still lowered. I have something to ask of you. His eyes flickered. Regarding the cooperation proposal, I think I've made my attitude clear. Hearing this, Shi Shujing panicked and immediately raised his head to look at him. It's not about the cooperation. It's about my friend, the girl at the restaurant that day. Do you still remember her? The man was calm. Gao Zhuqing? Seeing that he still remembered her, Shi Shujing was pleasantly surprised. Yes, it's her. She's a reporter and she wants to ask you for an interview. He finally said it. Shi Shujing just heaved a sigh of relief, but his heart was in his throat again. He was afraid that he would reject him. Si Wenchen's face softened a little under the light, and his lips moved. I'm not interested. Shi Shujing could foresee that he would be rejected, so he fought for it. I know this request is very abrupt, but Gao Zhuqing is really a very good reporter. I've been good friends with her since high school and I know her very well. Her parents were both reporters and they passed away in a car accident. It's really not easy for her to get to where she is today. It's her dream to be a reporter. The man didn't say anything and she looked anxious. Chapter 36. Si Wenchen listened to her quietly, although he could not understand the relationship between the people she was talking about. It's not easy, but what does it have to do with me? Shi Shujing was speechless for a few seconds and could only find another reason. That's the biggest magazine in Flozen City. Just treat it as a publicity for the Ocean Group. As soon as the words came out, she felt that she was too stupid. Sure enough, Si Wenchen joked after hearing it. Do you think the dignified Ocean Group needs a magazine to promote it? Of course not. The Ocean Group was the most powerful brand. Only others would use its name and it would never use others' name. Shi Shujing was at a loss for words. She really could not find a good excuse. You've always been low-key. Everyone wants to know you. The man calmly replied to every word she said. I like to be low-key. I don't like to be paid too much attention. There's nothing wrong with being low-key. Shi Shujing could not find any other dignified reason. To be honest, she knew how unreasonable this request was. It was equivalent to forcing Si Wenchen to do something he did not want. She did not have that ability, nor did she have that power. Boss Si, you're a successful person. You probably can't imagine how difficult it is for people like us to fight for our goals. Of course, you don't need to understand that, but I've seen Gao Zhuqing's bitterness all these years, so I can't sit back and do nothing. I can only bite the bullet and ask you. Seeing that he did not respond, she could only continue to hurt herself. For you it's just a few minutes, but these few minutes can change Gao Zhuqing's life. Take it as me begging you, even if it's out of sympathy, to help her. Although it was said to be a trick, in fact, Shi Shujing was the kind of person who spoke from the heart. She hoped that she could put down her dignity and sincerely beg him, so that he could be touched. Even if it was about the cooperation plan, she could not put down her attitude and beg him like this. But for Gao Zhuqing she could. To be honest, before this, Si Wenchen looked down on women because of their scheming against each other. For the sake of benefits or men, especially men, they didn't care about their sisterly love. After seeing so many of them, he started to hate women. He felt that women were very hypocritical. Therefore, he didn't have much sincerity towards women. Even if he had a female companion, it was just a momentary lust. However, other people also coveted his money. He did not force anyone. He was not a good man, but he was definitely not a bad man. He had always been a gentleman. Seeing how Shi Shujing begged him for the sake of his friend, Si Wenchen treated her differently, but it didn't mean that he had to agree. Manager Shi, I think you should understand that I'm a businessman, not a philanthropist. There are so many pitiful people out there, I really can't sympathize with them all. Also, I don't agree with the practice of entrusting one's future to others. If your friend is as outstanding as you say, he can rely on himself, not me. She was stunned. The man in front of her didn't stop. For a businessman, benefits are the most important. I will not do a losing deal. I can agree to the interview, but the problem is, if I agree to be a good person, what benefits can you give me? Shi Shujing's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him nervously, feeling uneasy, and forced herself to calm down. What benefits do you want? However, he suddenly stopped talking. The strange silence made the atmosphere even more awkward. Shi Shujing lowered her head. She could only hear her own heartbeat. She knew that Si Wenchen was looking at her, like a hunter looking at his prey. Actually, even without him saying it, she could guess it. However, she wasn't sure if her guess was right. She felt that she might be thinking too much. She felt that she wasn't outstanding, so why would he like her? When Shi Shujing thought of this, she felt that she had overestimated herself. She sneaked a glance at him. When their gazes met, she immediately looked away in panic. Her cheeks unknowingly turned even redder, and her hands were trembling. At this moment, she felt like she was waiting for a judgment. Every second was long for her. After a long time, Si Wenchen drank a mouthful of red wine and spoke with his deep and sexy voice. Chapter 37. His eyes and the atmosphere at the moment indeed made people have wild and fanciful thoughts, but when he said this personally, it still gave Shi Shujing a lot of shock. Her rouge face suddenly turned pale, and she was so nervous that her voice became hoarse. Shi Shujing forced herself to calm down, stabilized her body and smiled embarrassedly, but even she herself felt that it was fake. Boss C, you really know how to joke. With Boss C's financial resources, there are as many women around him as carps crossing the river. How could he like me? I do have a lot of choices. Si Wenchen's voice was tainted with the smell of alcohol, becoming hoarser, and his eyes were full of interest. But what you can give is very little. Apart from your body, what else do you think you have in exchange? Shi Shujing was speechless by his question. Indeed, what kind of person was Si Wenchen? He had a lot of money, so much that he could not spend it all. Power, the fact that he could stand in such a high position itself affected a certain amount of political interest. Such a man did not lack anything, but she had nothing. What right did she have to negotiate with him? Between them, it had never been an equivalent transaction. The rain was getting heavier and heavier, and thunder and lightning were roaring. Lightning flashed across the dark night sky, illuminating everything in a pale white. In this desperate night, Shi Shujing's heart also fell into darkness, and she could not help but sink. In the end, she was still too naive. Seeing her little face slightly pale, Si Wenchen could not help but feel a little distressed. For the first time, he felt that he seemed to have said something a little too much, so he added, "Manager Shi, don't misunderstand me. I don't think of you as that kind of woman. In fact, I am very interested in you." Was it interest or emotional interest? Shi Shujing satirized in her heart. In the end, the only thing she used as an excuse to protect her dignity was that marriage in name only. "Thank you, Boss C, for thinking so highly of me. I am flattered, but I am already married." Hearing her mention marriage, Si Wenchen's heart was inexplicably angry, so it was inevitable that his words were a little harsh. Oh. But this morning, the entertainment section also made a big deal about Boss Qin's extramarital affair. It seemed that he was with a model. Shi Shujing felt as if his heart had been stabbed by a knife. She thought that she no longer cared how others mocked her marriage. However, Si Wenchen's words made her feel embarrassed. She was already humble enough in front of him. She didn't want to lose even the last bit of her dignity, so her tone was a bit tougher. "That's a matter between us as husband and wife. Boss C is meddling too much." Seeing that she was still stubborn, Si Wenchen's anger grew. He didn't want to hurt her, but she always liked to deceive herself. Si Wenchen hoped that she could open her eyes and see how much of a failure her marriage was. "I didn't go out of my way to find out about those scandals, but the entertainment section is right next to the finance section. The eye-catching red words are hard to miss." Si Wenchen put down the wine glass and touched the cigarette box. His slender fingers fell on the carved lighter, and a faint blue flame jumped out. He tilted his head and lit the cigarette between his lips. The smoke curled up and he narrowed his eyes. When he smoked, he looked less serious and more unrestrained. On him, the habits of a businessman and the elegance of a gentleman were just right. That kind of charm was beyond words. After lighting the cigarette, he returned to his previous posture and puffed out the smoke. "I don't want to be nosy and I don't mean to mock you. If there is any emotion, it is because I feel that you are unworthy. Manager Shi is an excellent woman, and she should have a better choice." A better choice? Shi Shujing mocked in her heart. If his so-called choice was to sleep with her for one night, then she didn't think it was better than being Mrs. Qin in name. In fact, it was even more insulting. "Bossy, you worry too much. I am very satisfied with the current situation, and you don't need to worry about it. Since you don't want to accept the interview, then I won't force you. Sorry to bother you." Just as she was about to get up, Si Wenchen stopped her in time and said, "I thought you would insist. Just like this cooperation case, since the interview is so important to your friend, are you sure you don't want to consider it?" She stood there and looked at him with disdain. She didn't want to pretend anymore. Chapter 38. I respect your choice. Si Wenchen slowly blew out a smoke ring, calm and elegant, and did not feel any displeasure because of her refusal. Although Shi Shujing was a little angry since the topic was over, she didn't want to dwell on it. I have carefully considered Boss C's suggestion. The design team of Blue Sky is not good enough. I raised this problem at the regular meeting this morning. The company decided to dismiss the designers who have no performance and hire experienced ones with high salaries. A new team will be formed as soon as a week and the best plan will be made. You seemed a little surprised. Isn't Manager Shi worried that you will be the target of public criticism? However, she still had a calm expression. That can't be helped. Since there is a problem with the company and I have found it, and it is related to me, I can't sit back and do nothing. The man smiled when he heard this. I admire Manager Shi's courage. Since your company is so sincere about cooperation, if I don't make an exception, it seems unreasonable. Then I will give you another month to wait for Blue Sky's plan to come out, and then we will confirm the contract. His behavior was equivalent to giving a slap and a piece of candy. He refused her interview and could only make up for it with cooperation. He pitied her. Shi Shujing knew it, but what could she say? To be honest, she had to thank him for taking pity on her. One word from him could determine her life and death. She could only please him. Thank you, Boss C. I'm sorry to have wasted so much of your time. I'll go back first. The man turned his head and glanced at the wind and rain outside the window. Are you sure you can go back in such heavy rain? The night sky was like a monster opening its bloody mouth and roaring wildly. It was very terrible. But in Shi Shujing's opinion, no matter how terrible it was not as terrible as staying with a strange man in the middle of the night. You can stop a car when you leave the neighborhood. However, she didn't know if he was deliberately making things difficult for her. I don't have an umbrella at home. She didn't mind. She didn't have any hope for him. Through contact, Shi Shujing knew some of Si Wenchen's shortcomings too well. He was an absolute interest-oriented person. It doesn't matter. It's raining heavily anyway. You will get wet even if you have an umbrella. The man gave a seemingly kind reminder. The residents here all drive their own cars. There aren't many taxis around here. This time she felt a little depressed. She thought to herself, if you have good intentions, why don't you understand and find someone to send me back? Anyway, wasn't that how she came here just now? Because she could not find a way to go back, she could only grit her teeth and say these words. If it's convenient for Boss C, could you send someone to pick me up? In fact, it wouldn't be a big deal if he sent her back personally. However, Shi Shujing didn't know why he didn't have the courage to say this. Si Wenchen looked at her calmly and still refused, as if he was deliberately making life difficult for her. In this kind of weather, it seems a little too inhumane to trouble my own subordinates. Besides, it's easy to get into a car accident. He wasn't a very humane person in the first place, right? Shi Shujing secretly thought. Seeing that he had no intention of changing his mind, she was in a dilemma. She couldn't let Gao Zhuqing brave the storm to pick her up, although she knew that Gao Zhuqing would definitely be willing to pick her up. At this moment, there was a little helplessness on her face and she looked at him for help. Then what should I do? Anyway, she couldn't think of a way. She asked him for help, but he always refused. She took a taxi by herself, and there were no taxis around. The man seemed to be waiting for her to be so helpless. If Manager Shi doesn't mind, you can spend the night here. Afraid that she would misunderstand, Si Wenchen specially said. There are 2 rooms. She was stunned. She didn't expect that his final solution was this. She was even thinking that he would find someone to send her back, but he refused. Was it because he had this idea from the beginning? Shi Shujing hesitated for a moment but still refused. I'm afraid it's not that convenient. Manager Shi, don't misunderstand my intentions. Si Wenchen puffed out the smoke. Although I'm not a gentleman, I don't want to take advantage of a woman. In fact, if I wanted to, I would have taken action the night you were drunk and I wouldn't have waited until now. Chapter 39. Shi Shujing was in a dilemma. She didn't know if she should take the risk, but Si Wenchen put out his cigarette and stood up. If Manager Shi insists on leaving, I won't stop you. You can do as you please. I have a flight tomorrow morning, so I'll rest first. Good night. She stood in the living room and watched as Si Wenchen walked into the bedroom and closed the door. Seeing this, she was a little disappointed, but she also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Her back was covered in sweat, and from the looks of it, he really didn't want to send her home. However, spending the night at his house, according to his situation, he probably wouldn't do anything to her. Looking out of the window, the rain didn't seem to be slowing down at all. The wind howled, making one's hair stand on end. For safety reasons, she could only stay for the night. Going out in such a heavy rain, she had to worry about being struck by lightning. She also had to worry that she wouldn't be so unlucky as to meet a fool who was still wandering around on a rainy night. Speaking of which, the last time it didn't rain, he was so worried about her. Now it was the same time and it was even raining. Why wasn't he worried about her? Sure, Shujing really couldn't understand Si Wenxin's thoughts. She felt that this man was doing it on purpose. He just wanted her to stay. If he was really kind, how much time would it take for him to drive her back? After entering the guest room and locking the door, Sure Shujing nervously confirmed it 4 or 5 times. She was very busy every day, so she was sleepy at night. She was very nervous just now and had used up a lot of energy. Now that she was exhausted, she curled up in the warm eiderdown quilt and didn't want to move at all. The shirt on her body had his scent, lingering in the air, giving Sure Shujing the illusion that she belonged to him. Because her entire body was wrapped in his scent, it was as if she had become a part of him. She was amused by this funny thought and fell asleep in a daze. After a good night's sleep, she didn't even dream. When Sure Shujing woke up, the sky was already bright and the rain had lessened a little. Her whole body felt soft and carefree. She rubbed her eyes and took a look at her phone in a daze. It was already 10 o'clock. Frightened, she bounced up from the bed and hurriedly got out of bed to check. The door to Si Wenxin's room was open and she had already left. She went to the bathroom to change into her uniform and went out. Just as she walked out of the door, a black Bentley stopped at the door. The driver got out of the car and bowed respectfully. "Good morning, Miss Sure." She stared blankly for a moment, waiting for his explanation. "I'm Boss C's driver. He asked me to pick you up when he arrives at the airport." Sure Shujing nodded and said, "Thank you." She didn't expect Si Wenxin to be such a considerate person, but he still made things difficult for her last night. On the way to the company, she received a call from Gao Zhuqing. Sure Shujing hesitated for a few seconds because he couldn't tell her about the failure. He didn't dare to pick up the phone. Unexpectedly, as soon as the call was connected, Gao Zhuqing's excited scream was heard. "Shujing, you're amazing. I love you to death. You're the most amazing person in the world." Sure Shujing was confused. Did you take the wrong medicine? However, Gao Zhuqing couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. She was still immersed in excitement. "Boss C has agreed to do an exclusive interview." "What?" Sure Shujing frowned. "Are you mistaken?" He clearly said. Perhaps she was too excited. Gao Zhuqing didn't listen to her at all. She was excited in the other side of the room. "No. This morning, he personally called the president and said that he wants to do an exclusive interview with me." TSK. You didn't see the envy and jealousy in our chief editor's eyes. Although she was unwilling, she still transferred me to the finance and economics department. Gao Zhuqing was so excited that she was about to go crazy. Sure Shujing was infected by her emotions and smiled. "Then do your best and show them your results." Hearing this, Gao Zhuqing smiled. She finally regained some of her normal emotions. "Of course. Today they ignore me, but tomorrow I'll make sure they can't reach me. Oh yes, what's the relationship between you and Si Wenxin? Is it because of you that he agreed to do an exclusive interview with me?" These words made Sure Shujing fall silent. Chapter 40. However, it was not appropriate for her to tell Gao Zhuqing about her thoughts. So she could only say it this way. "No. We are just business partners." However, Gao Zhuqing did not believe her at all. "Stop it. Why would he call you personally as a business partner? This kind of thing is usually done by his subordinates. As I said, there is something fishy about the way he looks at you. He must like you. You've watched too many idol dramas." Sure Shujing shook her head. "We are not in the kind of relationship that you think we are." Although she had always felt that Si Wenxin liked her a little, she inexplicably rejected it in her heart. She did not want to admit it. On the other side, Gao Zhuqing did not care and continued to mutter to himself. "Not now but in the future. Just wait and see if you don't believe me," Sure Shujing said as the chauffeur stopped at the entrance of the company. "I'm here. I don't want to talk to you anymore." He hung up the phone. Although Si Wenxin did not say it clearly, Sure Shujing knew that she owed him a favor because of this. It would not be so easy to talk to him in the future. At least it would not be like before. As she walked to the company thinking about what Si Wenshan had done for her, Shi Shujing quietly sent him a text message. "Thank you." These two simple words were enough to express her feelings. She looked up and saw the blue sky and white clouds above her head. She smiled and thought that he should be on the plane now. It would take at least more than 10 hours to fly from China to England, even if it was a direct flight. It was already 11 o'clock when Shi Shujing arrived at the company. Before she had time to make a cup of coffee, Yin Jingqi came to look for her. She knocked on the door and walked into the office. Yin Jingqi was sitting behind the desk. Her posture reminded her of Wu Ziqian, who was in charge of the court. Putting aside the prejudice between them, Shi Shujing had to admit that Yin Jingqi was impressive. Yin Jingqi's background was not glorious. To put it bluntly, she was a mistress. But she had the ability to take over blue sky and make Qin Baiyuan the heir. She was also quite resourceful in the business world, but she was a little ruthless. Shi Shujing did not agree with some of her methods. But no matter what the process was, Yin Jingqi had already dominated half of the company and was the second in command of the company. The way Yin Jingqi looked at Shi Shujing had always been unhappy. She frowned. "Why did you come to work so late? Where did you go last night?" Yin Jingqi didn't know if it was because Shi Shujing reminded her of herself in the past, but for some reason she didn't like Shi Shujing. In fact, Shi Shujing's mother was not the legal wife. Looking at her mother-in-law, Shi Shujing was quiet. She didn't want to tell the truth. She didn't like to lie, but in this situation if she told the truth, Yin Jingqi would make trouble. "Let's go to a friend's house." However, Yin Jingqi clearly did not believe it. Which friend? In fact, she didn't have many close friends, so there was only one person she could find as a scapegoat. Gao Zhuqing. Hearing this, Yin Jingqi knew that she was lying and became more and more contemptuous. The people she sent to follow her reported last night that she got into a car, but the rain was too heavy, so they lost her and didn't take pictures. Yin Jingqi didn't expose her. How's the project of Ocean Group? On the opposite side, Shi Shujing was still standing there obediently. "It's still the same, but Mr. C has said that the contract will be signed in a month, so we still have time." After inquiring about the situation, Yin Jingqi waved her hand. "I see. Go to work." Okay. Shi Shujing left the office and breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't know if Yin Jingqi had seen that she was lying. Anyway, their relationship had been extremely bad, so it couldn't be much worse. While waiting for the elevator with a ding, Su Zhixin happened to walk out. As soon as she saw her, Shi Shujing only felt that she was really unlucky today. She met two people she didn't want to meet. She also knew who Su Zhixin was looking for. Qin Baiyuan's office was on the same floor as Yin Jingqi's. When their eyes met, Su Zhixin sneered with disdain. Her posture was as arrogant as a peacock, and she crossed her arms in front of her chest. Relying on the fact that she was a lot taller than Shi Shujing in high heels, she was arrogant and asked sarcastically, "Manager Shi is looking for Boss Qin?" Without waiting for her answer, she continued. Chapter 41. This time, Su Zhixin didn't even bother to put on an act like last time. "He hates you. You always show up in front of him, which will only make him more annoyed. If I were you, I wouldn't humiliate myself." Seeing that Su Zhixin was being frank, Shi Shujing didn't bother to put on an act. She hated Su Zhixin. It didn't matter if Su Zhixin had an affair with Qin Baiyuan or not. Just his character alone was very annoying, but it wasn't to the point of hating him. After all, the problem was with Qin Baiyuan. Even if it wasn't Su Zhixin, it would be another woman. Su Zhixin was just one of his many lovers. If there were too many, she wouldn't be able to hate them all. Besides, Shi Shujing wasn't an impulsive person. Most of the time, when Su Zhixin picked on her, she would put up with it as much as she could and rarely argued with her. To be honest, she felt that it was beneath her to argue with Su Zhixin. Facing such humiliation, Shi Shujing just smiled disdainfully. "Oh, when he is with you, he thinks of me too." Su Zhixin's face turned pale. She felt that Shi Shujing's words annoyed her, so she gritted her teeth. "That's because he hates you too much. Are you happy? Don't you know how to write the word shame?" However, Shi Shujing didn't bother to answer. "No matter what, it means that I am in his heart." Su Zhixin rolled his eyes, feeling that it was ridiculous. "Shi Shujing, your skin is thicker than the city wall. No wonder Bai Yuan said that about you. Haven't you looked in the mirror? Don't you know how ugly you look? Qin Baiyuan thinks of you because you disgusted him. Instead of wasting time pestering him, why don't you buy a set of clothes and do some makeup first so that you don't ruin the city? Look at your face. Do you look like a woman? Seeing this, Shi Shujing pretended to look down at himself. Thank you for your suggestion. I'm just worried that you'll feel inferior if I put on makeup. What? Am I ashamed of myself? Su Jixin pointed at her own nose and laughed very exaggeratedly. At the same time she was a little annoyed. She had never seen such a shameless woman like Shi Shujing. No matter what others said about her, it seemed that nothing could hurt her self-esteem. Where does your confidence come from? Was he out of his mind? Miss China. You're just an old-fashioned woman. You can't even compare to one of my fingers. Do you know how much Bai Yuan loves me? However, Shi Shujing remained calm and even smiled. He looked at Su Jixin as if he was looking at a monkey. Yes, liking the new and hating the old is a common problem for men. No matter how beautiful they are, they will eventually get tired of it. It's just like delicious chocolate. You will get sick of it after eating too much and you won't want to eat it anymore. If he's really that obsessed with you, why would he appear in the entertainment magazine headlines with his new lover every few days? Manager Su, let me give you a piece of advice. Beauty is only temporary. If you want to keep a man, you still need to rely on your brain. So, Shi Shujing was mocking her as a brainless vase with a false appearance? Su Jixin was furious. She really hated Shi Shujing's calmness. No matter how others ridiculed her, she still looked calm and indifferent. She was obviously an abandoned woman. Where did she get the capital to be arrogant? Was this damn ugly woman worthy of it? Ding! Finally the elevator that they missed just now was here again. Shi Shujing still had a calm smile on his face. I'm very busy. I'll go to work first. Facing Su Jixin's resentful gaze, Shi Shujing's expression did not change. His smile was the biggest disregard for her. Until the elevator door closed, his smile turned into a bitter smile. She felt that Su Jixin was pitiful. She fought so hard for a man who treated her as a toy. But what right did she have to sympathize with others? Just thinking about it made her heart ache. She only let herself be disappointed for a moment. When she got out of the elevator she restored her calm. So, when Su Jixin stormed into the office, Qin Baiyuan frowned. Don't you know how to knock? I'm angry. Why would I knock? Su Jixin sat on Qin Baiyuan's lap. Her beautiful facial features were wrinkled, looking delicate and pitiful. What's wrong? Who made you angry? Qin Baiyuan pinched her chin and asked gently. Chapter 42. Su Jixin looked at him, who looked like a villain snitching. Who else can it be? Isn't it your great Mrs. Qin? Qin Baiyuan's face darkened and he became impatient. What's wrong with her? She pouted and acted arrogantly in front of others, but acted coquettishly in front of him. I bumped into her as soon as I got out of the elevator and was mocked by her. You are the one who picked the fight, aren't you? Qin Baiyuan raised his eyebrows. Shi Shujing was hateful, but he was not a woman who liked to stir up trouble. On the contrary, Su Jixin had a shrewd personality and was often fearless. She had always taken the initiative to pick the fight with Shi Shujing. Over time, Qin Baiyuan was used to it. Every time she talked about Shi Shujing, he could guess who was picking the fight even if he didn't see it with his own eyes. Su Jixin was a little angry when she heard him say that she was not the one. I just advised her to stay away from you and not pester you, but she is riding on my head. The man just didn't believe it, but he still comforted her. That woman looks gentle, but she has a sharp tongue. Will she let you have the upper hand? Haven't you suffered enough in the past? Don't provoke her if you have nothing to do. Su Jixin was speechless. This year, the number of times she had looked for trouble with Shi Shujing was innumerable, and even she herself couldn't remember how many times she had looked for trouble. But every time, Shi Shujing was able to fend her off with little effort. Sometimes she had even humiliated herself. Just thinking about it made her gnash her teeth in hatred. Damn woman, how dare you bully me? I don't care, you have to help me. Su Jixin punched Qin Baiyuan with her little fists and acted coquettishly, which gave him goosebumps. All men liked it. Okay. I'll help you, okay? He kissed her on the mouth. Baby, don't be angry. You won't be beautiful if you are angry. She is nothing in my eyes. Why should I be angry with an insignificant person? Although she said that, Su Jixin was a little anxious when she thought that they were not divorced yet. She is not an insignificant person. She is your legal wife. Darling, hurry up and think of something. It's been 3 years. How much longer do you want that woman to drag you down? At the mention of his marriage with Shi Shujing, Qin Baiyuan had a headache and his face darkened. You think I'm not anxious? I don't know what she did to my father, but he forced me to marry her. He threatened me with the inheritance. I can't just give up the company for that woman, can I? I'm not that stupid. Su Jixin had a wronged look on her face. Tears welled up in her eyes, making her look pitiful. Is there no other way? As long as your marriage exists, I won't be able to see the light of day. I don't want that. She knew that Qin Baiyuan was a playboy. Even after the divorce, he might not be able to change this bad habit. But at least based on the current situation, she was the most likely person to become the new Mrs. Qin, so she racked her brains to get rid of Shi Shujing. Qin Baiyuan was impatient. I know. Give me some more time. That woman won't be able to pester me for long. Su Jixin's eyes lit up, and her face instantly turned from gloomy to sunny. Really? Sometimes it was okay to put some pressure on him, but not too much. She was afraid of arousing Qin Baiyuan's disgust, so she put her arms around his neck with a smile and kissed him on the mouth. Well, don't think about that woman anymore. Let me make you happy tonight? Qin Baiyuan pinched her chin, and his eyes were shining with lust. He touched Su Jixin's thigh with an evil smile. How are you going to make me happy? She whispered in his ear, and her voice was low and a little shy. I bought the sexy clothes you asked for last time. Qin Baiyuan's ear was itchy, and his lower abdomen had a reaction. He sucked in hot air and gritted his teeth. You little vixen, let's see how I deal with you tonight. Su Jixin smiled seductively. Why wait until tonight? I'm wearing it now. This was what Qin Baiyuan liked most about Su Jixin. She was wild and bold enough. He turned into a hungry wolf and pounced on her. The two were kissing passionately when the phone rang. Darling, don't answer it. Su Jixin held on to him. Qin Baiyuan put his arms around her waist and took the phone with the other hand. When he saw the number on the screen, he stopped. Darling. Don't. Su Jixin stared at him with dissatisfaction. Qin Baiyuan made a shushing gesture, calmed down, and picked up the phone. Chapter 43. Yes. At the company. Of course, what else can I do? He glanced at Su Jixin guiltily. She was wrapped around him like an octopus. Her fiery red lips kissed his face all the way to his Adam's apple, causing him to pant heavily. He quickly pulled her away and signaled her to stop. Didn't she handle the commemorative banquet? I've made a deal with her. What do you want me to do? I don't want to go. Don't force me, okay? Qin Baiyuan frowned impatiently. Okay, I got it. That's all. As soon as he hung up the phone, Su Jixin clung to him again, but Qin Baiyuan pushed her away. Stop it. Go back to work. Seeing that his attitude was different, Su Jixin knew that something must have happened. What's wrong? What did your dad say? However, the man seemed a little impatient. Don't worry about it. Su Jixin pouted unhappily, but he was in a bad mood. She did not dare to throw a tantrum in front of him, so she got up and put on her clothes. Have dinner together? I know a new Western restaurant that's not bad. After we finish eating, we can... I'm not free tonight. Qin Baiyuan adjusted his tie and pressed the intercom. Call Shi Shujing up. As soon as he hung up, Su Jixin shouted unhappily. Why are you looking for that woman? You didn't ask her out tonight, did you? However, it seemed that Qin Baiyuan really did not want to explain a word more. I'm already annoyed enough. Don't add to my troubles. Go back to work. Su Jixin stomped her feet and walked away angrily. Qin Baiyuan wiped his face with a tissue and threw it into the trash can. 10 minutes later, Shi Shujing came up. His first sentence was questioning. What took you so long? Putting on airs in front of me? Shi Shujing was calm. I'm in the middle of a meeting. I have to deal with the things at hand first. His necktie was crooked. The current Qin Baiyuan was no longer the handsome boy with a bad smile but a warm heart. He had completely changed into another cruel man. She was so disappointed that she didn't know how long he could hold on. While Shi Shujing was in a trance, Qin Baiyuan had already interrogated her. Did you snitch on Dad again? Hearing this, she was obviously startled and didn't understand why he would say such a thing. I didn't. However, Qin Baiyuan did not believe her at all. Perhaps he had never believed her. No? Then why did he call me from abroad and ask me to prepare the wedding anniversary party with you? Realizing this, Shi Shujing immediately felt relieved. She knew it. He rarely took the initiative to look for her. Every time he did, something must have happened. I don't know, I didn't talk to him on the phone. Shi Shujing thought, do I still need to snitch on him? Qin Yuning had seen Qin Baiyuan's attitude towards her. How could she not guess that he would stand by and do nothing? On the other side, Qin Baiyuan looked at her with a cold expression. Still quibbling. Shi Shujing was too lazy to waste her breath. I've already arranged for the dinner party. I'll go to the venue after work today. You don't need to worry about anything. If Dad asks, I'll say that you participated in the whole process. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Do you think I'll believe you? You said that, but I don't know how to trick me behind my back. Otherwise, Dad wouldn't have called me. I'll go with you after work. Hearing this, she was a little surprised. Are you sure? Actually, there's no need for that. Qin Baiyuan's brows furrowed even tighter as he asked in an unfriendly tone. What do you mean now? Do you think I'm begging you to go? She immediately shook her head, thinking that he was being too serious. No. I just don't want to force you. The more Qin Baiyuan listened, the more disgusted he became. You don't want to force me? Why didn't you say that when you were pestering me to marry me? Now you're pretending to be sanctimonious. Don't you find it disgusting? Shi Shujing sighed. See you after work. Seeing that she was about to turn around, he hurriedly reminded her. Wait for me at the back door of the company. Don't let anyone see us together. Originally, Shi Shujing was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, but this sentence made her a little disgusted. She couldn't help but turn back to look at him. Chapter 44. Was really funny. He had a woman in the company hugging his new lover every day and making the headlines. But she, his legitimate wife, was hiding it? What kind of logic was this? On the seat, Qin Baiyuan saw that she seemed to be a little concerned about this matter. He couldn't help but stab at her, feeling more and more satisfied. I've never treated you as my wife. Don't be so full of yourself. I feel embarrassed when I'm with you, okay? Shi Shujing frowned and felt uncomfortable. She simply said nothing and turned to leave. After work, Shi Shujing went to the back door. Qin Baiyuan had not arrived yet. After waiting for about half an hour, a Ferrari came roaring and rushed directly towards her. She was so scared that she hurriedly dodged and broke out in a cold sweat. Qin Baiyuan was proud of himself. Based on how much he hated her, he really wanted to kill her in a moment of hot-headedness. Shi Shujing's face did not look good. Although she knew that he did it on purpose, it was not good for her to lose her temper even though she was angry. When she got into the car flew out before she could even sit properly. She hit her head on the seat and felt dizzy. She hurriedly fastened her seatbelt. Can't you drive a little slower? He looked at her through the rearview mirror from the driver's seat. He was so proud that there was a smile at the corner of his mouth. No. If you don't like it, get out of the car. Shi Shujing was speechless. She knew that Qin Baiyuan liked to race cars. His cars were very high profile and flashy. They were limited edition and cost tens of millions. It was extremely extravagant. Seeing that he was more or less childish, she suddenly thought of Si Wenqin. In fact, she did not know why she suddenly thought of that man. Si Wenqin's cars were mostly business cars. They were expensive but low-key and very gentlemanly. Qin Baiyuan, on the other hand, liked those flashy and exaggerated cars. It was as if he was afraid that others did not know that he was rich. It was really a classic contrast between a nouveau riche and a noble gentleman. Thinking of this, Shi Shujing felt that it was funny. Her phone suddenly rang and the words, Si Wenqin, flashed on the screen. Shi Shujing's back shivered. Why did it come as she thought of it? Telepathy? She found it more and more funny. If it was a coincidence, wasn't it too much of a coincidence? Seeing that she was lost in thought, Qin Baiyuan mocked. What? Don't dare to accept? A call from a wild man? Do you want me to answer it for you? Shi Shujing ignored him. He composed himself and answered the call. Hello. It's me. Si Wenqin. His voice was deep. I know. Hello. For some reason, Shi Shujing felt a little nervous and guilty. Perhaps it was because the space in the car was too small. He was so nervous that he felt a little breathless. The man on the other end seemed to be silent for a few seconds before speaking. How's the plan going? Shi Shujing didn't expect him to ask so quickly. It had only been a day. Wasn't it too rushed? When did he pay so much attention to this matter? Previously he had been indifferent. Shi Shujing didn't have time to think too much. She put away her messy thoughts and answered with a professional attitude. As far as I know, the company has hired 2 experienced designers today. Both of them have worked in the top 10 foreign real estate companies. Their standards are very outstanding. Seeing this, the man replied calmly. Good. Shi Shujing had wanted to thank him personally for agreeing to the interview. But because Qin Baiyuan was present, she was afraid that he would overthink, so she didn't say it. She didn't speak for a while. But after waiting for a while, seeing that Si Wenchen wasn't going to say anything, she couldn't help but ask. Is there anything else? Unexpectedly, the man was silent for a few seconds. He raised his eyebrows and asked a question instead of answering. It's not convenient for you to answer the phone? Shi Shujing was anxious. No. But I'm busy now. Realizing this, Si Wenchen didn't want to disturb her anymore. Okay. See you when I return to China. Goodbye. After hanging up the phone, Shi Shujing breathed a sigh of relief. Holding the phone, her palm was hot and her scalp was a little numb. Seeing her like this, Qin Baiyuan was even more sure that there was something fishy between her and that person. He felt disgusted and a little uncomfortable. Bossy? Her face was a little calm, more or less indifferent. The man replied with an "oh," sounding enigmatic. You're very close to him. He actually took the initiative to call you. Hearing this, Shi Shujing immediately sensed something strange. She turned to look at him with a solemn face, hoping that he wouldn't think too much. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.